Hi, guys. We already got 50 people live on chat. It's great. It's a great day to be live on the Counterpoints channel. We are a part of Valor Media Network. We are going to be going live a healthy chunk of the time. We're going to be live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. most days. Of course, the schedule is going to be flexible as the needs of the channel go. Today, we're taking a look at Noah Samsen. Noah Samsen is a far left, in my opinion, insane leftoid who has gone after a healthy chunk of people in the online political sphere for being insufficiently sympathetic to the plight, of Palestinians. And so he's criticized a lot of people we know, and he's also defended a lot of people that we dislike. And so we're going to go into this a little bit blind. I'm going to take notes as we get information, and we're going to talk a little bit of smack while not using too much profanity, and we're going to have fun. So if you guys are down for the ride, let's go ahead and get into it.
If you like my videos and want to help me make more of them and faster, consider joining my Patreon. Thanks. About a month ago, the 6 million subscriber YouTube channel H3H3 Productions released a video called Content Nuke Hassan Piker. In this video, the host, YouTuber Ethan Klein, alleges that the political streamer Hassan Piker is an extremist that supports terrorism and terrorist groups.
And over time, I started to learn that my co-host, he really likes terrorists.
Promotes anti-Semitism and is radicalizing his viewers to do the same. He accuses Hassan of being a rape denialist and goes on to accuse him of prolonging what he calls the Israel-Palestine conflict with his radical views.
This conflict will never end until people realize that Palestinian liberation and Israeli security are not mutually exclusive. You need both, and it can be done, but not while people like Hassan lie, propagandize, and incite hate. It's people like him, ironically, that prolong the conflict indefinitely.
In this video, Ethan...
So hold on. We're actually, yeah. Let's give him a little bit more rope.
Also criticizes Twitch, the platform that Hassan streams on, accusing the company of having a systemic problem of anti-Semitism. He cites the company's open support of Hassan, its sponsorship of a live event that Ethan claims was anti-Semitic.
I feel like this is indefensible, blatant, obvious anti-Semitism, and this was greenlit by Twitch to appear on their main stage.
And its alleged discrimination against Jews through a recent ban on new account signups from Israel. So I'm going to tip my hand a bit here and say at the outset that this video is quite possibly the worst video I've ever seen. It's plagued with factual errors, misrepresentations, contradictions, and overt pro-Israel Bush-era U.S. State Department propaganda. For a more thorough breakdown of all of this video's problems, I'd recommend the YouTube channel Bad Empanada. He's gone...
I recommend Bad Empanada. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so hold on. We have to go through what's being claimed, and we have to go through the debunking. Okay, now we're going into this video a little blind, the YouTubers who backed a genocide by Noah Samsen, but the statement is made: Hassan Piker is an extremist that supports terrorism and terrorist groups. Well, I already know that we have clips of Hassan Piker saying like, oh, I don't support Hamas explicitly, but I understand why they did what they did, right? And by the way, this is like in the wake of watching Hamas supporters gun down civilians, hold up their heads as if they were hunting trophies, chop off people's heads with gardening implements, and substantiated sexual assaults that have been told by released hostages and have been documented through physical evidence of women being tied up to trees and then shot in the back of the head with their panties around their legs and their crotches being burned. So saying that Hassan Piker is an extremist. Oh, he also supported Hezbollah, where somebody asked him, he's like, oh, what's Hezbollah? And he's like, oh, well, it's this organization in Lebanon that resists Israel. I don't have any problems with them, blah, 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 blah. And he basically says everything that would make you think that he can't endorse them because they are actually a terrorist organization, but he's not going to criticize them either because he thinks that their cause is just or whatever, right? And so Hassan is an extremist. He does support terrorism. He does support terrorist groups. We can argue about promotes anti-Semitism, but I've seen the man do rape denial. And Ethan doesn't say that Hassan Piker specifically is an obstruction to peace in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Hassan Piker isn't big enough for that. But what Hassan Piker's propaganda does is it says that the only solution is a one-state Palestinian-controlled solution in Israel. Well, guess what? Israelis are never going to do that. And Israel currently has all of the military power. So his perspective does prolong the conflict. So far, Ethan is like 5 out of 5 on his perspectives. Twitch does have a systemic problem with anti-Semitism, in my opinion, because they do back creators who are anti-Semitic, or at least anti-Israel, if you don't want to accept anti-Semitic. And then the hummus panel was mildly anti-Semitic. I thought it was funny. I just didn't think that it should be sponsored by I just didn't think that it should be sponsored by Twitch. And then IP banning Israel, I think, is pretty messed up. And then he's saying the worst video he's ever seen, Bush era State Department propaganda, which is funny because he should. Maybe we'll watch a Bad Empanada video. I have no idea. State Department propaganda. You still haven't said what's wrong with it. And then he recommends Bad Empanada. Bad Empanada is a psycho. Okay. So maybe he has good analysis on history. We'll take a look at his content and see what's up. But Bad Empanada like stalked aristocracy, stalked another half a dozen creators. Whenever he finds somebody that he dislikes, he like schizo posts about them for like days or weeks on end. I wouldn't be surprised if we watched a Bad Empanada video and we were critical of it. I wouldn't be surprised if he got like schizo about us. So he's annoying and he's kind of a freak. And these people admit that he's a freak, but they like his content because it's going after Ethan. So anyways, this is about as far as I got before I got pissed off last time I watched it. But Noah Samsen has debated before and he falls apart like wet tissue paper. So let's see if he has anything substantive in this video.
Point by point with these and debunked them, many of them months prior to the release of Ethan's video. Hassan himself has also responded to most of these claims also months ago. I will leave these.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't. Hassan Piker has not addressed that he's an extremist who supports terrorism and terrorist groups. He hasn't addressed his rape denial. He hasn't addressed the fact that a one-state solution is unrealistic. He hasn't addressed that Twitch has a systemic problem. He hasn't addressed the hummus panel in a substantive way. He hasn't addressed that Israel was IP banned. He hasn't addressed these except for to hand wave them. So Noah Samsen asking us to take that on faith is very dumb.
These videos linked below in a playlist. Given the existence of these dozens of other responses, I'm not here to repeat their arguments. You can just go watch them. No, the real reason I'm talking about Ethan's video today is less about what he says in it and more about what he doesn't say, the things he chooses to leave out. Save for a passing mention of an outdated, vastly underestimated death toll of Palestinians in Gaza, Ethan omits the Palestinian side of the story entirely. He doesn't talk about Gaza. He doesn't give any specifics about what Israel is doing there. And this is an issue for a few reasons, but mainly all of the points he raises are directly tied to the Gaza genocide. The main targets of this video are some of the only groups in the world that have violently resisted Israel's genocide, and the few figures in independent media that are willing to tell the Palestinian side of the story. By leaving out the broader context, Ethan is able to present a false perception to these millions of viewers about the motivations behind the people his video attacks. He's able to frame them as mindless, terrorist-supporting, America-hating anti-Semites, and not what they really are, which is anti-genocide people that are against genocide. Western media manufactures consent for large-scale.
All right, this is way too charitable to his side. This is insanely charitable to his side. Accuses Ethan Klein of lies of omission. Okay, I'm good with that. I'm happy to take a look at what other information that you have that Ethan Klein omitted that you think is relevant to the story. Telling the Palestinian side of the story. Okay, I'm okay with that. Mindless terror supporting anti-Semites. I think these people are quite dumb, and in some ways they are quite mindless, but I'm happy to listen to new information, and that these people are just anti-genocide. No, they're not just anti-genocide. So saying that they're just anti-genocide is kind of, I don't even know if missing the forest for the trees is an appropriate way to phrase this. Who is it? Hassan was watching and praising the raids of Houthi pirates on commercial ships and then spoke with a Houthi teenager. I don't care how many times the lefties try to gaslight you on this. He was a propagandist for the Houthis. Okay? So don't let them gaslight you and say, oh, he's just a kid. He's just a teenager. No. He posts social media with weapons. He talks to the hostages that the Houthis have taken. He tours the boats that have been captured. He posts social media posts that talk about how he's ready to die in violent resistance against the state of Israel. No, that kid is clearly a Houthi propagandist. He's not just some random teenager, right? It's crazy. And so, no, these people aren't simply anti-genocide. They are justifying the Houthi government shooting rockets into random commercial ships, hurting and killing and injuring people who have nothing to do with the conflict, and then also damaging international commerce. Now, these people are leftists, they're socialists, so they don't care about international commerce. That's totally cool, but it's not cool at all. But I'm saying, like, that can be a perspective that you hold, I guess is the better way to phrase that. But don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining, right? You are supporting these bad actors who are doing bad things. So yeah, don't lie to me, right? Harmonic Fox says Hassan a kid. He's like 45 years old. No, Hassan is in his mid 30s. He's like 2 or 3 years younger than me. He's not that old. And then also, I wasn't referring to him. I was referring to the Houthi. The Houthi kid is probably like 23, 24 right now, but I think he was like 20 or 19 at the time of the interview. Anyways, let's continue. Noah Samsen is, in my opinion, off to a rough start, but we're only 3 minutes in, so we got to give him some time.
Terror operations are against not what they really are, which is anti-genocide people that are against genocide. Western media manufactures consent for large-scale terror operations across the globe in a number of ways. There are more overt forms like atrocity propaganda. There are also more subtle ways like deceptively framing information, using passive language, and creating false perceptions about conflicts through things like burying the lead and lies by omission. All of these tactics are present in Ethan's video and the wider online smear campaign that.
So hold on. Western media does terror apologia for Western military operations, lies of omission, burying the lead, and I don't know. He said something about like framing. Oh, sanitized language. I mean, this is just true that people do this, conscious and unconscious. But terror apologia, he's already engaging in rhetoric, right? So when he says that the government is involved in like excusing terror operations, what he's already doing is he's making military operations by armed, uniformed military services who have rules of engagement. He's making that equivalent to suicide bombers walking into markets and blowing themselves up and killing dozens of civilians. So no, like I reject that these two things are the same. I reject that a squad of uniformed troops walking through the street and getting into firefights with jihadists who ambush them is the same as walking into a market filled with animals and then blowing yourself up and killing dozens of civilians. I reject this. And the fact that we have this guy who's saying that these things are equivalent through rhetorical games kind of tells me that this guy's full of shit. Now, let's see how full of shit. Harmonic Fox says Destiny and Dan bullying the realistic AI is still some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. Good stuff. Jonah Boy says, what's up, guys? Well, hey, man, Jonah Boy, welcome aboard. Good to see you. We have some regulars hanging out in chat. It's beautiful. We got 60 people cross-platform. It's beautiful to see all of you. I'm just going to do a very, very brief shill. Valor Media Network. If you haven't done so already, type that into your YouTube search. Subscribe to that channel. I will be live there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, okay? The reason why I'm here hanging out with you guys and we're doing a full day of content today is because I want you to enjoy the content that we produce today, and I want you to follow me over to Valor Media Network where we will be doing this full time. Okay. Let's continue.
That motivated it. But it's that last thing that I think does quite a bit of damage, lying by omission. The way Ethan's video is framed seems to imply that Israel's genocide in Gaza is not actually a genocide. He never explicitly uses the term himself, but it's presented as just another thing that's happening in the Middle East that's sad, but ultimately the product of a war. That there are deaths on both sides, and that all we need to have peace is rational dialogue between these two sides. This could not be further from the truth, and to better understand this, we need to talk about Gaza. Thus far, I've been using the term genocide in reference to Israel's actions in Gaza, but it seems like a lot of the people using it on social media here have a general lack of understanding of the gravity of what that term actually means. Genocide isn't just a bad thing that's happening where people are dying. No, that's not what it is. It's a Holocaust. The US-Israeli Holocaust. That's what it should be called. Israel is using everything in its power to eradicate Palestinians from the planet. The fact that Israel's actions in Gaza amount to genocide isn't controversial, not among the experts at least. This is the near universal consensus among top human rights groups and humanitarian organizations operating on the ground in Gaza that Israel is committing genocide, countless war crimes, and crimes against humanity. There is the Amnesty International report, a 300-page report that accused Israel of genocide in Gaza. There was the Human Rights Watch report accusing Israel of crimes against humanity and genocide in Gaza, specifically through the intentional deprivation of access to clean drinking water. The United Nations, Euromed Monitor, Doctors Without Borders, the International Committee of the Red Cross, Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem, various Holocaust scholars, they're all saying the same thing. Last year, the International Court of Justice ruled that the case for Israel's genocide in Gaza is plausible. It was a preliminary hearing, and the final rulings on cases of genocide typically take multiple years, but the ICJ issued several provisional measures to prevent the possibility of a genocide taking place, provisional measures which Israel has failed to follow completely. And then there was, of course, the International Criminal Court, who issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who are now wanted international war criminals. Towards the start of his video, Ethan mentions a death toll figure of 40,000 Palestinian people.
Of course, if you compare the raw numbers, Gazans have lost a lot more than Israelis. 40,000 people have died, and neighborhoods have been completely flattened during this war.
The figure he cites is wrong. It's just wrong. Credible estimates have placed the full scale of the slaughter in Gaza at over 65,000 deaths due to traumatic injury alone, with further projections that include indirect deaths in the hundreds of thousands, potentially over 10% of the population of Gaza. Ethan's brief...
Okay. All right. So now we just need to do a little bit of research, chat. A little bit of research, okay? So what is the current death toll in Gaza? Sorry for pausing, but we need to take a look. 62,000 is still accurate. 15 months of war, ceasefire deal, 76%. All right. The head of the Gaza Government Informational Office told a news conference earlier today that the bodies of 76% of Palestinians killed in the conflict have been recovered and brought to medical centers. However, at least 14,000 people are believed to be trapped in the rubble and inaccessible to rescuers. The updated death toll from Israel's war on the besieged thing is 61,709, having added thousands who are missing and now presumed dead. Here are the latest casualty figures in Gaza. Killed at least 61,000, including 20,000 children. Injured more than 111,000 people. Missing and presumed dead 14,000. So that puts us at like 80K. The latest figures from the Palestinian Ministry of Health in occupied West Bank. Killed at least 905. Injured more than 7,330. Israel has lost 1,200 people. Injured at least 9,000. Devastation across Gaza. 80% of commercial facilities have been flattened. 88% of school buildings, healthcare facilities, 50% of hospitals, 68% of road networks, 68% of cropland has been destroyed. Journalists killed in Gaza. By December 27, 2024, more than 200 journalists have been killed in the Israel-Gaza conflict. According to Protect Journalists, at least 2,017 Palestinian, 3 Lebanese, and 2 Israeli journalists have been killed. Forced displacement. That's probably going to be my biggest concern. How the Hamas attack unfolded. Okay, so I'm not gonna argue these details. Okay, because let's assume that everything is correct. Okay, we got 60K dead. Add in another 15K presumed dead. That's 85,000. And then he's just saying that there may be another 200,000 indirect deaths. Okay, so the reason why I think that this isn't working the same way in my mind as it works, and I think a lot of Westerners are very similar to me, is that when we think of the Holocaust, okay, when we think of the German ethnocide of Jewish people in Europe, all right, what we think of is taking all of European Jewry, putting them into a ghetto, keeping them there for a limited time, moving them to work camps where those people are worked to death, resulting in thousands dead, and then also taking those people to death camps where they are executed and summarily buried or burned. we also think about the fact that there were, I think there's something called like Normal Men or something like that. And I think it's about Polish police or German police who are deployed to Poland, and they spend weeks just executing people. They literally just they dig holes. They have people dig holes, giant graves. They walk hundreds, if not thousands, of people up. They start at 9 a.m. and they shoot people in the back of the head until 8 p.m. Right, and they just do that every day for weeks. So the reason why comparing that level of ethnocide and genocide to what's happening in Gaza, the reason why it doesn't work for the Western mindset is because that's what we have conceptualized as the Holocaust. And then when we look at Gaza, what seems to be happening is the Palestinian resistance forces, if you want to be charitable, they have rocket propelled grenades, they have AK-47s, they have homemade rockets, and they have IEDs. They attack Israeli forces that are operating in Gaza and the West Bank, and then Israel responds with small arms fire and tank shells. And so the small arms fire and tank shells hit the area that the Palestinian resistance fighters are coming from. And because of the population density, there are so many Palestinian civilians around the people who are shooting at the Israeli forces that for every, Palestinian fighter killed, there's a few civilians killed. And then cumulatively, you add that up to people being dead. And so when you take a look at getting into a firefight and then killing civilians as the result of the realities of urban conflict versus intentionally marching out people and executing them all day, every day, there's a spectrum of violence here that is not being met. And so Noah Samsen, he can have his opinion. I don't begrudge him his opinion. I don't begrudge people seeing Palestinian children buried in rubble and their heads crushed and running to hospitals and sobbing parents. I don't see that. I don't begrudge them being angry, being hateful, being resentful of the Israeli government. I don't. But I feel like their language, the way that he's accusing people of using sanitized language, is the way that I would accuse him of using hyperbolic language in order to communicate a point that is demonstrably different. Oh, geez. So let's just check in with chat real quick because we have been watching this for a few minutes. The displacement is a real worry. Yeah, that's one of my things is they're talking about moving 2 million people out of their homes. That is where I think that you can easily make an argument for ethnic displacement, which I would agree is 100% like a crime against humanity. Aren't all the buildings destroyed? I think 80% of the buildings in Gaza are destroyed, and I think that the IDF intentionally destroyed all of the infrastructure in Gaza. Where if you use the United Nations definition of like trying to destroy a people in whole or in part, or to give them such conditions that they cannot live, I feel like that definition is too broad, but you can use that definition 100% to accuse Israel of genocide, especially if you think that they're trying to deprive them of the capacity to live in that area. Christian Valera says, you cannot trust any NGO or Gaza Palestinian-sponsored org. Probably not, but we still have to parse out the information as best we can. KC says, at every step of the process, by the way, Jews were dying of starvation and disease. Yeah. Jonah Boy says Poland. Harstar says, yes, that's the thing that made the Holocaust so bad was the systemization of the killing. Well, I mean, yeah, so you need to show me the systemization. If you're going to say that it's the U.S. Israel Holocaust of Gazans, and then you say 60,000 dead over the course of 2 years, there's a variable here that's not adding up. The best claims against Israel IDF is being less controlled in bombings during the start of the Gazan war. They stopped using knock warnings before airstrikes. True. Which I think they would be pissed off after 10-7, right? Germany was an extreme example, but I can be swayed to the argument that this is more so a convenient excuse of getting rid of the Gazans. Caldis, I agree with you. If they move 2,200,000 people out of Gaza using this operation as an excuse, I am with you. I think it's inexcusable. It is a crime against humanity. I just resent the implication where they're like, this is the U.S. Israeli Holocaust. And then you're like, hold on. The Holocaust was a systematic killing of people, 6 million people over the course of 4 years. It's been 2 years. How many people are dead? And they're like, well, 60,000 are dead. as a result of war, and then maybe another 185,000 are dead as a result of like deprived conditions. And it's like, okay, so 200K over 2 years, 2 million are still alive and are surviving in the rubble, and we're comparing that to 6 million liquidated over the course of 4 years. I, you know, we can call it bad without being hyperbolic. Yeah. Okay. All right. Listen, chat, I'm happy to be corrected. Okay. C-Dub says, I'd also count the 200K as I'd count the ghettoization contributing to millions during World War II. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm all for considering what's being said. I am not for accepting their hyperbole, but I've yapped enough. Let's continue.
Belief and false citation leaves a lot of other things unmentioned, like how the vast majority of these deaths have been Palestinian civilians, including over 15,000 children. The United Nations described Gaza as a graveyard for children just months into the genocide, and after that, Israel only ramped up its child killing. Ethan does not mention that over 1,200 families have been completely erased from the Gaza civil registry, meaning that every single member of their bloodline has been killed. Nor does he mention that the mass slaughter of these innocent civilians has been intentional. Israel has a long history of intentionally targeting Palestinian civilians for slaughter. This dates back to the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of over 700,000 Palestinians from their land in 1948, which included the massacre of thousands of civilians. And it's also evident in all of Israel's many previous violent incursions into Gaza specifically. During Operation Cast Lead, starting in late 2008 to 2009, Israel slaughtered about 1,400 Palestinian people. 300 of those were children. During this widespread massacre, Israel ordered people to shelter in schools, so-called humanitarian safe zones, then proceeded to bomb the schools and kill people by the dozens. This practice has continued at an even larger scale in the latest escalation in Gaza.
Firas, my brother Firas, he screams. The pain is overwhelming as corpses lie by his feet. These are the moments just after an Israeli strike on a school sheltering thousands of displaced Palestinians.
During the 2018 border protests, or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful, Israel fired on the peaceful crowds with sniper rifles, injuring thousands and killing hundreds. The UN reports concluded that Israeli snipers were intentionally targeting children, medics, pregnant women, and disabled people. Israeli snipers later publicly, gleefully recounted their experiences of hunting Palestinians for sport, bragging.
Hold on. Because here's the thing. I actually know some of these details. So let's go here. Over 200 Palestinians were killed and nearly 8,000 were injured during almost 2 years of weekly protests at the Israel-Gaza border. Israeli army snipers tell their stories. 42 knees in 1 day. Okay. So you're not going to like this. I don't think anybody should like this, but this is something that was told to me by an Israeli soldier. Okay. So there are dozens, hundreds, thousands of protests along Israeli security checkpoints every year. And so part of the security protocol is that there are so many protesters who are throwing rocks, throwing Molotovs, they sneak a gun into the crowd, et cetera, that they don't want to allow the protesters to bunch up on the fence, right? And so in order to get them to disperse, they want to wound them without killing them, but they want to make sure that the wounds are so substantive that they have to be removed. Because if you hit people with tear gas, they can come back in 30 minutes. If you hit people with pepper spray, they can come back in 30 minutes. If you go out and beat them with sticks, then you basically you run the risk of, one, physical confrontation, but then two, if they sneak a gun or a suicide vest into the group, then they can kill plenty of your people. And so what the Israeli soldier told me was that they have dedicated 22 caliber rifles, 22 shorts, and 22 long rifle. And for those of you who don't know what a 22 is, it's basically this big. Okay, it's a very small round. And so you can technically kill someone with it. If you hit an arterial pathway, if you hit them in the heart or the head or the eye socket or something like that, you can still kill somebody with a 22 short or a 22 long rifle. But what the Israeli people were told, or trained to do, is they were taught to shoot people in the calf, shoot people in the thigh, try to aim away from their away from their arteries, so they don't actually kill the people, but they give them a wound that they need to be like evacuated from the protest for. And so when I see 42 knees in one day, what I'm presuming, what we're actually seeing is Israeli sharpshooters, not snipers. Snipers are different, but Israeli sharpshooters shooting people in the kneecap with a 22 short or a 22 long rifle caliber bullet, which is not designed to kill them, but is designed to wound them and remove them from the state of play. Now, is it messed up? Yeah, 100%. But could they technically just bust out like a 308 machine gun and hose the crowd and kill thousands in seconds? Absolutely. And so this is where I get a little frustrated with the framing, where we just saw kids who got blown up in a school or whatever, where I'm not denying that that's a thing. I'm not denying that we don't have 20,000 dead kids. I'm not denying that there aren't 60,000 total dead. I'm not denying that there aren't another 185,000 people who might have died as a result of deprivation of water, food, starvation, exposure, et cetera, et cetera. However, what I would say is that Israel has 500-pound bombs. They have 1,000-pound bombs. They have fighters that the Gazans cannot resist. They have tanks that the Gazans cannot resist. They have already flattened all of the buildings, allegedly killing 60,000 people, which is amazing that the casualties aren't higher. And number two, if they wanted to just walk explosives across all of Gaza, Gaza is about the size of Detroit, they could just create an artillery barrage line and cover every square meter with an artillery shell and kill every single human being on like inside Gaza. And so when you tell me that 200 Palestinians were killed and 8,000 were injured, I'm assuming that the 8,000 were people who were shot with 22 short or 22 long rifle, then, and you say that, oh, this is an indication that Israel's engaged in wholesale slaughter of Palestinians. It's like, no, I know that technologically they could walk artillery across the entire state of Gaza, and you're showing me 8,000 people shot with 22 long rifle. There's a spectrum of violence here, and you're telling me it's one, but it's very clearly the other. You can say that both are bad, but don't pee on my leg and tell me that it's raining. So I think there's a detachment from reality here. Isn't that illegal by UN rules? 100%, but that's what Russia does. Russia just shells any position that they think has civilians or Ukrainian soldiers in it. They don't care who's in it. Do you see Russia getting indicted for war crimes? No, they just do it. They just do it, and everybody goes, oh, that's Russia. Russia just does that. It's okay. The more I learn, the less I feel I know. Well, that's history for you. Max Thrax says there's a good amount of footage from the Great March of Return. I wouldn't be surprised. While throwing petrol bombs and firing weapons, yeah, Christian Valeris, I'm sure that there were some weapons mixed in. This is why carrying water for either side is messed up. So tired of this ideologically driven conflict. I mean, conservative liberalism, I'm with you. I generally speaking agree with Israel's right to exist, but I'm not going to endorse what they do. They do obviously messed up stuff all the time. Horrible actions of the Israeli army. They can't. We would stop them. So you're wrong. I call BS. Call BS on what? Tell me things. Like the US uses white phosphorus. Yeah. We use white phosphorus for illumination, but you know what white phosphorus does? White phosphorus sets the air on fire. So if you breathe it, it'll burn your lungs inside your body. If you're just walking through a cloud of white phosphorus, it sets your skin on fire. And so we use it for illumination. But guess what? When we were in Fallujah and we were doing sieges, we put white phosphorus tank shells into buildings, not because we couldn't see the buildings accurately, but because we knew that it would set the air on fire. So yeah, it's definitely a war crime, but I want to make a joke, but I want to be sensitive to the people who are taking this seriously. So I'll make my joke later. On them bombing out Gaza. Well, if you're saying that we simply couldn't allow that, make the joke. I'll make the joke in a second once we settle into the fact that it's a joke and I'm not making a serious statement. On them bombing out Gaza, we wouldn't allow that. Well, yeah. There's technological capacity there, and then there's morality and there's legality, right? So morally, all this stuff is bad, but it's not as bad as walking artillery across all of Gaza. Technologically, they could, right? So you could say that the United States wouldn't permit it, but they could, right? Make the joke. Okay. The joke is very simple. It's just, it's not a war crime if you're having a good time. Okay. It's a obviously military saying, probably mostly about white phosphorus, mostly a meme. But yeah. All right. Let's continue.
Publicly, gleefully recounted their experiences of hunting Palestinians
Exactly.
for sport, bragging about the number of kneecaps they could shatter. This trend has continued in Israel's latest escalation since October 7th to an extreme degree. IDF snipers are intentionally targeting children for execution by shooting them in the skull and in the heart. Healthcare workers have testified to seeing Israeli drones hovering outside of hospitals, picking off children. That's where they're shooting them and injuring them and then circling back to execute them.
What I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. And we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children who would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's clearly a deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day, and that meant 10 to 20 dead, 20 to 40 seriously injured.
Just hunting Palestinian children for sport.
Okay. So let's do a little bit of research. Does Israel have quadcopter drones with guns on them? Eyewitness in Gaza say Israel is using sniper drones. The shelling isn't far from us at all. Okay, I'm not looking for eyewitnesses. I'm looking for the drones. These are all people saying the same thing. Armed drones in the Middle East. Does anybody have pictures of these? Quadcopters in Gaza. I'm not saying it's not possible. Is that a pistol or a rifle? That's a United States drone. L-beat. All right, let's take a look. Maybe we'll learn something new today. As part of its genocide against the Gaza Strip that has been ongoing since 7 October 2023, the Israel army has been using small drones or quadcopters to fire directly at Palestinians, killing and injuring many of them. Israel's army has increased its use of electronic-controlled quadcopters, which were previously restricted to use for intelligence purposes for killing and injuring Palestinians. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just surprised. I can't tell what that is. Can we get more specific? All right, these are more people saying the same thing, but I'm looking for... This is counter drone tech.
On Monday, a city showed an Israeli drone threatening Palestinians that Hamas's actions would lead to a second or third Nakba, or ethnic cleansing, to happen to them. The message seems to be aiming to reduce support for Hamas, that many patients could not be safely evacuated, with loudspeakers were playing sounds of crying children and women in distress to draw Palestinians.
What? We don't have any pictures. Seriously, like I'm sorry for continuing to research this, but it's like if you're going to make a claim like that, you should probably substantiate it. A U.S. tech firm has developed a drone that is able to aim and fire at enemies while flying midair. Okay, this is a U.S. drone. Birds of Prey, Elbeat Systems. Okay. Let's see if Elbeat Systems is... These are 3D drawings. Come on, man. Listen, I'm sorry if I'm boring you guys to death, but like this should be something that should be easy to substantiate. Elbit Systems is an Israeli-based international military technology. So I'm not saying it's not possible. It's entirely possible. Elbit Systems gun drone. Okay, so they exist and they've flown them. Come on, man. Okay. Listen. All right, I'm going to expand. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you, okay? All right, so I'm sorry for taking so long in order to Google that, to try to research it, to try to substantiate that. The reason why I'm trying to break this down is because if you had, let's say we have a Palestinian Hamas fighter with an AK-47 or an RPG, he's several blocks away from an IDF checkpoint, and it looks like he's creeping on people, right? It's okay, in my opinion, for a gun drone or for a bomb drone or for an airstrike or for a helicopter to try to take that guy out, right? So they hit him with some kind of explosive, right? Hits, injures, kills him, and then there's other people that are around him that are injured or killed just because of population density, okay? You're now talking about a gun drone flying up and systematically shooting people on the ground and executing them despite being unarmed. I'm not saying that's not possible, okay? It's possible. But you would think that we would have video. You would think that we would have photos. You think that we would have military tech demonstrations. You would think that we would have news articles saying that we developed this technological capacity and we are flying drones in the Israel-Gaza conflict, because most military industrialists advertise their products. So the fact that we have American drone manufacturers who are advertising that they have the capacity, but they're not saying whether or not they're doing it. Then we have Israeli people who say that they have the capacity, but they're not saying whether or not they're doing it. It seems like there's a gap here in information that seems like exaggeration to me. Nate says I should dual stream on Kick. I probably will. I probably will. Really? Speakers with crying children? Yeah, you think we would get more information on this. What's the name of the new channel again? Valor Media Network. Valor Media Network. Yeah. The smart shooter and the smash dragon. Okay, let's Google that. Smart shooter drone. And we'll get back into the content. I'm sorry for putting us down a segue, but if we're gonna make pretty broad claims, then we should be able to substantiate them. The Smash Dragon. Smash Dragon drone. Sure. I'm with you. I mean, it's definitely... Ooh, there we go. It says drone killer. So they're alleging that this is for the purposes of killing other drones. All right, let's just watch this. And then we'll get back into the content. I'm sorry for putting us down a segue. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for a substantiated photo. Okay. Well, we learned something today, which it's definitely technologically feasible. I would want to see it. I would want to see it more substantiated, but still. All right. The name of the drone just makes me think of the Becky Let Me Smash meme, but with dragons. True. Let Imagine Dragons smash you. All right, let's continue.
Sport. It's pure terrorism. The Israelis also have a history of murdering Palestinian civilians by running them over with bulldozers and tanks. Recall the story of the killing of Kamal Zair from April of 2002. Israeli tanks shot and killed him and then proceeded to run him over. He was 57 years old, wheelchair-bound, and waving a white flag. Another prominent case of this was Rachel Corrie, a 23-year-old American peace activist who was murdered by an Israeli bulldozer while protesting the destruction of Palestinian homes in Gaza. Israelis, for years after her murder, celebrated the day by making pancakes with Rachel Corrie's face painted into them. In the latest escalation, individual Israeli soldiers have admitted to committing these atrocities by the hundreds. The only reason we have these admissions is because Western outlets have written articles with concerns over how the mass murdering affects these soldiers' mental health. Another element to the case that Israel is committing genocide is its continuous intentional deprivation of the basic necessities for life for Palestinians in Gaza. They've been using starvation as a weapon of war, a war crime, and a crime against humanity. Most recently, Israel's response to the quote-unquote ceasefire in Gaza is to continue this mass starvation while explicitly stating it as a matter of policy. They have blocked humanitarian aid throughout the genocide in violation of international law, the ceasefire orders, and the ICJ's provisional measures against genocide. The pretext they've fabricated for this policy of intentional starvation is that Hamas is looting these aid trucks. They have provided no evidence for this claim. What we do have evidence for is that Israel has protected and supported criminal gangs with ties to ISIS in areas that Israel has full control over. And these groups have been looting.
The Israeli army is allowing gangs in Gaza to loot aid trucks and extort protection fees from drivers. Armed clans in the Rafah area are blocking trucks and entering Gaza from Israel, leading some organizations to avoid sending desperately needed humanitarian aid. These incidents are occurring in an area under full IDF control, with the army refraining from action due to concerns that harm to aid workers could provoke international criticism. So there's a pretty common trope, and it's in the opening scene of Black Hawk Down. If you guys haven't seen Black Hawk Down, it's a phenomenal movie about the 1992 conflict in Somalia. And there's UN aid trucks that show up with a whole bunch of food, and then the local warlords come and pillage them. That way they can disperse the food as they see fit. And so I'm not going to be surprised if Israel is being jerks and screwing with the food supply in order to screw with Gazans. I'm also not going to be surprised if there are actual legitimate security concerns where Hamas or other armed groups are taking over food, because food is power. So, yeah. Christian Valera says, reread my first tweet. Sorry, buddy. That you have to bear in mind that there's like a whole bunch of stuff coming through. So there, I would have to scroll through a lot. So if you want to retype it, retype it. No mentions of the massive amount of food and aid during the conflict. Well, yeah, Jeff Lewis, that's the other thing too, is that there's been a huge amount of support for material support for Gazans. So the picture, I'm not saying that this isn't possible. I'm just saying that it's there's a more complicated picture than what Noah Samsen is painting, as demonstrated by the casualty numbers. But let's give him. I've been pausing and researching and all that kind of stuff, and I want to give him the opportunity to speak. So let's just see if we can let him get someplace substantive. Right now, he's saying, here are all the reasons why I think Israel is bad, and Ethan Klein did not mention sufficiently that Israel is bad. That's what he's saying right now.
Aid trucks. Israel is intentionally depriving Palestinians in Gaza of access to clean water. Oxfam reported that Israel has destroyed over 1,000 miles of water and sanitation networks, leaving less than 7% of pre-war water levels in Rafah and North Gaza. Israel has also partially or entirely destroyed over 80% of water and sanitation infrastructure in Gaza, including all 6 of its mainline wastewater treatment plants. Brutal, violent attacks on the healthcare system are another aspect of the genocide. They've damaged or destroyed every single hospital in Gaza and murdered countless medical workers, doctors, nurses, rescue workers, and healthcare staff. They've kidnapped doctors and held them without charge, where they've been tortured. Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, Gaza's leading orthopedic surgeon, was kidnapped by Israeli soldiers, brought to an Israeli prison, and then reportedly raped to death. The latest
IDS state the drone is being used specifically for drones and entrenched Hamas combatants, which makes sense, but could be used in war crimes. Not likely, though. Yeah, Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. It's definitely possible. Rights expert condemns death of Palestinian doctor in Israeli custody, urges independent inquiry. A renowned Palestinian orthopedic surgeon death in Israel detention has been labeled horrifying by UN human rights expert, prompting calls for an independent international investigation. Raping people to death is bad. Okay, don't rape people to death. I think conserve liberalism made this point earlier. He was like, this is why I don't carry water for either sides, because both of them are extremely messed up. So I'm gonna go with conservative liberalism on this one. I just wouldn't be confident in saying not likely when we just acknowledge that they're kneecapping people and commit war crimes on the regular. Well, yeah. So I guess we shouldn't carry water for either side. Conservative liberalism. The only reason, okay, conservative liberalism. The reason why I put X to doubt on some of these things, for instance, there is a greater game at play in information warfare. And so, for instance, that story of, oh, the Israelis are using drones in order to say that the Palestinians are about to undergo a second and third Nakba. Okay. So my perception would be that Israelis wouldn't want to say that kind of shit because Palestinians have smartphones and they would be willing and able to video record and audio record that and then post that to the internet. And effectively it would be Israelis saying like, yeah, we are coming to Holocaust you. Right. Whereas I do think that from an information warfare perspective, a Palestinian force saying they are on the verge of committing a second and third Nakba on you. You need to do this, you need to do that or whatever. I would think that more likely in the age of information warfare. So the things that we can prove are already bad enough that we don't need to make shit up. I guess is my main point. And Serenaded Swan says, yo, is this live? And yeah, what up? So we're live. We're going to be live from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 days a week. I'm going to be live on the Valor Media Network covering news and covering online politics and covering Red Pill. This is going to be our new schedule. I have 6 months to build up a channel and build up a show. So you 50 people cross-platform who are hanging out with me, you're helping me to do that just by being here. If you haven't done so already, please like the stream so other people know that we're live. Also, please follow, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. And then if you have money burning a hole in your pocket, feel free to donate it. So thank you for the help, though. Christian Blair says, because the IDF has a history of using methods to avoid civilian deaths in the past, whereas Hamas hasn't. Sure. Yeah, K-Soko, if there's a perspective between defaulting to the IDF because they're the more technologically sophisticated and have more rules of engagement and blindly trusting them, and then if there's being skeptical of everything that they're saying, I think we should probably be 60% to the skeptical side. That's where I would be. Conservative liberalism says, oh, I get that propaganda is layers deep. Buying into anything any side says without expressing skepticism is a fool's errand. I just don't see the point in always expressing benefit of the doubt to either side continuously. I agree. I will try to amend my skepticism, or I will try to up my skepticism a little bit of the Israeli side.
Israeli soldiers brought to an Israeli prison and then reportedly raped to death. The latest UN reports have concluded that over 90% of the buildings in Gaza have been severely damaged or completely destroyed. If you watch any of the footage coming out of Gaza, this is made quite clear. Israel's destruction includes every single school, hospital, mosque, cultural center, church, residential areas. Everything has been bombed. It's estimated that it will take a minimum of 15 years to remove the debris and unexploded ordinances from the Gaza Strip. That's just removing it, by the way, not rebuilding. In September, the UN released an estimate that because of Israel's illegal and inhumane blockade around Gaza, which regularly limits the transfer of things like concrete into the Strip, fully rebuilding Gaza will take 350 years. Gaza is about 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. It is one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. It is in this area that Israel has dropped equivalent to that of multiple nuclear weapons. Israel has done this with full knowledge that over half the population of Gaza is children. So no, this isn't just a case where 40,000 people died. A lot more than that happened. One of the most tragic elements of the Gaza genocide is that, as crucial as it may be for the factual record and eventually holding the perpetrators accountable, merely recounting these statistics does not afford Palestinians the dignity of humanity. They're simply reduced to numbers, to tens of thousands of names on a registry, as if they aren't human beings with dreams, hopes, hobbies, interests, and love for the people around them. If you've had this feeling as well, I want to recommend a book. It's called If I Must Die. It's written by renowned Palestinian poet, author, and teacher Dr. Rafat Al-Arir. It's full of stories and poetry and history about life, or rather survival, in Gaza during occupation and genocide. It is beautifully written and humanizing beyond anything you'll ever get from most coverage of Gaza, especially in the West. I have a friend from Gaza. His name's Ahmed Sarsour, and he's a very talented poet. We got in contact on social media, and when I read his work, it moved me in a very similar way to the way Dr. Rafat's words have. Ahmed has a sister, Rania. She is a mother and a gynecologist from Gaza and is seeking help after being displaced in February of last year. She and her children were forced to flee their home, and her life was further devastated when her home and her family members' homes were destroyed. She gave birth to her baby, Rose, in a hospital without proper care and no anesthetic, and now faces a dire situation with limited resources. I've linked your fundraiser in the description. Support if you can. The funds raised will go towards essentials like diapers, baby formula, medicine, basic living items, rent, and travel expenses for relocation. Another friend of mine, Ahmed
Oh, that's nice. That is nice.
Mater, is a 27-year-old inventor from Gaza. He makes these brilliant videos showing the process of constructing creative inventions to use in order to survive in Gaza. After the
Listen, I'll admit to being a little Islamophobic. When I see a young Arab man messing with a paint can, I get a little nervous, okay? But I'm happy he made cooking utensils out of it. Good for him. Good for you, Ahmed Matir. You're a good dude. All right, hold on. Serenaded Swan says, what do you make of the reports that Britain is providing significant intelligence operation services to Israel and Gaza through their base in Cyprus? They say half of the aerial recon missions during the war have been by the RAF. Okay. Israel is a Western ally, right? So, I mean, I kind of expect that, right? Casey J says, that guy was a member of Hamas, by the way, and said, blame Democrats if I die, laugh my ass off, rest in... Whoa, Casey. Whoa! Listen, that doesn't mean that a member of Hamas can't be a good poet. Jeez, bro. Did I get my... Abaddon says, did I get my copy of that book yet? If you're referring to the poetry by a Hamas poet, no, I haven't done that. Condemn what you can and should be no reason to pick and choose. I mean, I agree. Well, no idea. Okay, I'm happy somebody else, actually 2 or 3 people in chat. 2 or 3 people in chat thought the same thing that I did. Okay, good. I'm happy I'm not crazy. All right. Or if I am crazy, I'm just a little crazy. Sean Kaplan, no. I am going full time. I was live yesterday. So check out Valor Media Network if you haven't done so already. VALOR Media, common spelling, network, NETWORK. I'll be live there 5 days a week. I just came back to the original channel because they're going to be running a show on Tuesday. And also we wanted to spread the word on my home channel that I'm moving over to Valor Media. Of course, I'll still be posting pre-recorded stuff here, but we need to get the we need to get the pipeline up and running. So hold on, let me just I'm going to pay Noah a compliment. Okay, I am probably biased towards Ukrainians because I did relatively pro-Ukrainian coverage when the war first kicked off, and I had Ukrainian people reached out to me. And as a result, I have a human connection with at least a few civilians in Ukraine. I sympathize with their perspective. I sympathize with their plight. As a result, the war is more personal for me. And so when I see us backstabbing Ukrainians, I get really upset. And I just think about the people that I like, that I kind of like share a fraternity of humanity with. And I get upset that they're in a situation in which they're getting screwed over. And my government is helping them get screwed over more. And so I sympathize with Noah Samsen in this piece where there are plenty of things to object about Hamas, about Palestinian support for Hamas, about jihadist terrorism in general, about Islam feeding into jihadist terrorism, and also a wildly impractical perspective on a one-state solution. I think all of those criticisms can be levied, and you can still sympathize with Noah Samsen for having friends and people that he has met and talked to through the internet who are in Gaza, who are having a terrible result as a result of the war. So I don't have to agree with Noah Samsen in order to appreciate that he's actually sympathizing with human beings on the other side of the planet who are getting screwed over partially through American support of Israel. So if I had to pick a side, it's Gaza. Well, I think that's kind of where we're landing, is we're not going to pick a side, because there are plenty of things that you can say to defend and support Israel, but they're obviously doing a bunch of messed up stuff. And then I think that we all know that Hamas has done pretty messed up stuff because they videotaped it and they posted it to Twitter. Christian Blair says, Iraq-Iran war, Syria war, Saudi war, and Yemen, every one of these conflicts have killed more civilians intentionally than all deaths in the entire Israeli-Palestinian conflict going back to 48. I mean, that's true, but murder is still bad, right? So if I get murdered, the Holocaust is worse than my murder. Murder is still bad, though, right? Abaddon quadruple six says, yes, but this Abaddon quad triple six or quad six says that Noah Samsen's mustache burns up his charity. It's true. Common Cure, hello, good to see you. It's good to see familiar names in chat. Conservative liberalism says, don't forget Saddam gassed his own population too, although I don't think he ever claimed the Kurds. Well, conservative liberalism, we sold him the gas, so we have some blood on our hands there too. Razzle Smasher says, I dislike the current Israeli government, but the country has a right to exist, and Hamas is much, much worse. I think Razzle Smasher, you and I can break bread on that. But before I continue to yap, let's let Mr. Noah enlighten us. And so far, all I've gotten is that Ethan Klein insufficiently demonstrated the plight of the Palestinians. Here is everything that Israel has done that makes them bad. That is what I've gotten so far out of the first 15 minutes of this video.
The so-called ceasefire was implemented, Ahmed and his family returned to their home in the north only to find that it had been looted, vandalized, and destroyed by the occupation forces. Support his campaign if you can. I will leave these fundraisers as well as a link to Dr. Al-Arir's book in the description. The book is devastating, though, especially considering the fate of its author. Dr. Rifat was killed by Israel in a targeted assassination in December of 2023. He was killed alongside his brother, Salah, with his son Muhammad and his sister Asma, and 3 of her children. This came after having over 30 members of his and his wife's family slaughtered by Israel over the course of their lives.
Okay. Recifit Alir. What's his?
With these numbers, also members of Muhammad and his sister Asma.
Rifat Al-Alir. Al-Arir. Rifat. Al-Arir. There we go. All right. So let's read his Wikipedia. The only reason why I'm asking is that, so we have from Noah Samsen that he's a fantastic poet. He wrote a book, If I Must Die. It's heartbreaking. It's got this, that, the other, blah, 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 blah. His fate sucks. Let's just check, what's going on. Rafit Al-Arir. That's the best way to say it. Was a Palestinian writer, poet, professor, and activist from Gaza Strip. Al-Arir was born in Gaza City in 1979 during the Israeli occupation, which he said negatively influenced every move and decision he made. Al-Arir earned a BA in English in 2001 from the Islamic University of Gaza and an MA from University College London in 2007. He earned a PhD in English literature at the University Putra, Malaysia in 2017 with a dissertation of John Donne. He taught literature and creative writing at the Islamic University of Gaza and co-founded the organization We Are Not Numbers, which matched experienced authors with young writers in Gaza and promoted the power of storytelling as a means of Palestinian resistance against the Israeli occupation. On 6 December 2023, Al-Arir was killed by an Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza, along with his brother, sister, and 4 of his nephews during an Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip. The Euromed Monitor released a statement saying that Al-Arir was deliberately targeted, surgically bombed out of the entire building, and came after weeks of death threats that Rifat received online and by phone from Israeli accounts. On 26 April 2024, his eldest daughter and his newborn grandchild were killed by an Israeli airstrike on the Gaza City home. In December 2024, his final collection of writing, the posthumously published If I Must Die, Poetry and Prose, became a bestseller. So let's do, during the 2021 Israel-Palestine crisis, he wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times about the war occurring in the Gaza Strip, ending it with a conversation with his 8-year-old daughter, Lena. On Tuesday, Lena asked her question again after my wife and I didn't answer her the first time. Can they destroy our building if the power is out? I wanted to say, yes, little Lena, Israel can still destroy the beautiful Al Jawara building or any of our buildings, even in the darkness. Each of our homes is full of tales and stories that must be told. Our homes annoy the Israeli war machine, mock it, haunt it, even in the darkness. It can't abide their existence. And with American tax dollars and international immunity, Israel presumably will go on destroying our buildings until there is nothing left. But I can't tell Lena any of this, so I lie. No, sweetie, they can't see us in the dark. Oof. Oof. I'm looking, somebody in chat. Oh, here we go. In the immediate aftermath of the 2023 Hamas-led attack on Israel, he described the attack as legitimate and moral and said it was exactly like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. He also rejected allegations of Hamas engaging in sexual violence during the 7 October attack as lies to justify the Gaza genocide. All right. Patrick Kingsley, Jerusalem bureau chief of the New York Times, wrote that Al-Arier's critical remarks about Israel drew accusations in Israel being virulently anti-Israel and anti-Semitic in response to the claims since debunked that Hamas had killed a baby by placing it in an oven. Al-Arier jokingly responded with or without baking powder on Twitter. Oh, man, Barry Weiss is involved. This backlash includes an online harassment campaign from Barry Weiss, which led Al-Arier to tweet, "If I get killed by Israeli bombs or my family is harmed, I blame Barry Weiss and her likes." Oof. Mega oof. All right. Maybe he didn't deserve to get slaughtered inside his home along with his entire family, but maybe he also, he's a dead guy, so it's hard to criticize him. Maybe he shouldn't have joked that, like, you know, in the wake of Hamas actually executing children and women and these being verified on video, maybe he shouldn't have joked about an Israeli baby getting put into an oven with or without baking powder. Maybe the same way, bringing this back to Noah Samsen. Noah Samsen is accusing Ethan Klein of lies of omission. I would consider him not bringing up the things that Rifat Al-Arier did and said as a lie of omission, but that's okay. He's obviously biased to one side, right? We kind of knew that. Oof. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. Oof. Yeah. All right. Looks like chat's a little, looks like the chat is a little divided on the fate of Mr. Rifat Al-Arier. But I'm going to be right back. I'm going to use the restroom. I'll let Noah Samsen keep you company, though. Okay, so I'll be right back. Give me 60 seconds.
And 3 of her children. This came after having over 30 members of his and his wife's family slaughtered by Israel over the course of their lives. What these numbers also fail to communicate is the weight and depth the effects of this crime has had and will continue to have for generations. To speak only of the children of Gaza, they will forever hold the wounds and trauma caused by Israel's genocide in their minds and hearts. It was reported that when asked, over half of the children in Gaza expressed a desire to die. Many of them already held such wounds, though, of course, but in terms of sheer scale and intensity, what we're seeing now is incomprehensible except to those experiencing it. Throughout these 17 months of genocide, the international community has left the people of Gaza to languish and die. If there's anything we've learned about Israel in the past 100 years, it's that there is no crime they can commit that won't go unpunished, up to and including genocide. In the latest escalation, again, the world has watched this happen and done nothing. And some have, of course, actively made this genocide possible. Most notably, that would be the United States government. The US and the Biden administration is fully complicit in this genocide. They've repeatedly sent billions of dollars in weapons shipments and provided military and diplomatic support. Over 80% of the killing machinery that has been used to slaughter Palestinians in Gaza has been provided by the United States government. They've also provided rhetorical and diplomatic support by whitewashing Israel's crimes against humanity, laundering Israeli atrocity propaganda, and denying and dismissing genocide allegations. That last one should come as no surprise, given that a genocide ruling against Israel does also implicate the United States in the crime of aiding and abetting genocide, since they sent the bombs that made it possible. The ICC is already being urged to investigate Joe Biden and Antony Blinken for their role in perpetrating this very crime. These actions have shown the U.S. to be acting in violation of both domestic and international laws by sending weapons to a regime that is actively and intentionally blocking access to humanitarian aid against a civilian population that they are occupying, and ignoring the arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court against Netanyahu and Gallant. This is just another plot on the long, long chart of the US and Israel's position as rogue states in the international community. There's a comment I saw on Ethan Klein's video. It read, "I feel like a lot of people can't separate Israelis and the Israeli government, and the same with the other side. Like, you are allowed to hate on the people who actually kill people and not hate the innocent adults and children that are being killed from both sides." This is a popular framing among liberals.
Oh no! Sorry, I'm pausing because I need to prepare myself for the psychic damage that I'm already going to take. I can kind of already hear what he's going to say, which I'm assuming is he's going to evaporate the distinction between civilians and their government, which, if you want to justify terrorism, this is exactly what you do. So just to be clear, when we open this thing, Ethan Klein said Hassan is an extremist who supports terrorism and terrorist groups. He denied the rapes that happened on 10/7. His perspective on a one-state solution and people like him prolong the conflict. Twitch has a systemic problem with anti-Semitism. Citing the hummus panel and the IP banning of Israel. This is the worst video he's ever seen. Bush-era State Department propaganda. I recommend Bad Empanada. So he accuses Ethan Klein of lies of omission, telling the Palestinian. He doesn't tell the Palestinian side of the story. He characterizes his opponents as mindless terror-supporting anti-Semites when they're really just anti-genocide. Western media does terror apologia for Western military operations. They do lies of omission, bearing the lead in sanitized language. And then he says that Gaza is a genocide and it's a U.S.-Israeli Holocaust. I already gave you all my talks in reference to that. We wrote down the hard stats. He also just told us a bunch of really sad stories of dead Palestinians. One of them ended up being a Hamas supporter and made a lot of jokes about 10/7, but that's okay. Just because you make messed up jokes on Twitter doesn't mean that you should get J-damned. Maybe there was a more substantive reason for why he got hit with a bomb, but we don't know that. And now we might move into the blurring of lines of civilians and combatants, which actually is just justifying terrorism. But, you know, let's see how far he goes. Let's see where we land.
Liberals and liberal outlets that we should separate the Israeli people from the actions of their government. While there are some examples from the past where this may be true, such as the case of the American public's attitudes towards the end of the Vietnam War, which diverged from their government, the same cannot be said in the case of Israel. The vast majority of the Israeli public supports this genocide. Months into the genocide, polling showed that over 95% of Jewish Israelis supported the IDF's actions, with a majority of those indicating that the IDF was not using enough force in Gaza. The force in question there being, genocide. They wanted more. It wasn't enough, apparently. 17 months later, and nothing has really changed. Just weeks ago, polling indicated that the Trump administration's plan to facilitate the ethnic cleansing of Gazans was supported by over 80% of Israelis. This headline refers to Israelis as a whole, but that 80% support statistic is actually only the perspective of Jewish Israelis. A majority of Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, or Arab Israelis, as the Israeli government tries to call them, considers this ethnic cleansing plan to be immoral. When it comes to Jewish Israelis, however, that number drops to just 3%. This should come as no surprise given Israel's history. A country that exists on the logic of ethnic supremacy and colonization requires a certain level of dehumanization to keep its inhabitants from collapsing under the weight of the reality of their rotten society. Another way to get a handle on the seemingly ubiquitous genocidal fervor among Israelis is by just talking to them.
How many civilians have been killed in Gaza, from what you know?
Who gives a shit?
Okay, but don't you feel like, for example, children?
Children grow up to be Arabs. I read the numbers last week. My memory died and went to heaven. I don't think children should suffer, but they're always casualties. And since they do a lot of pruervu, that is the natural result.
חפים מפשע נהרגו בעזה.
טוב, מסקנה שנעצור.
את לא רוצה לענות על זה?
תודה.
אוקיי, אפשר לשאול למה?
כי אני לא חושבת שיש מישהו שהוא חף פשע שם.
אבל ילדים אבל, נגיד.
הילדים מסכנים, אין ספק, אבל הם לא יגדלו להיות ילדים חפים מפשע, לצערי.
Most of the kids there that are getting killed, I'm never I never support little children dying. You know, I never want to. But most of them will grow up not only supporting Hamas, which is a crime by itself, but joining them, which is the worst of the worst.
פשע נהרגו בעזה.
לא, זה גם לא מעניין אותי.
לא? למה?
לא מעניין אותי, אני הייתי עד 7 באוקטובר האמנתי בשלום ובשיח ובדו-שיח. אחרי זה הבנתי שאין לי מי לדבר, כולם שם מחבלים, לצערי הרב.
אבל ילדים, כאילו.
לא, אני אומרת בכנות, לא מעניין אותי.
There is no such thing as Palestinians. They're Arabs who have many countries to flee to and nobody wants them to. But if we do call them Palestinians, their parents use them as human shields to gain sympathy. The natural instinct of a Jewish mother is to protect her child. Palestinian women do not have that.
These people know that they're on camera and that these remarks will be posted on the internet or shared on the mainstream news. This is normal to them. This is normal in their society, which is a testament to the fact that their society is not normal. It's typically...
Hold on. So Noah Samsen is probably a child. So let's check this out. Noah Samsen, age. Born 1997. So he is calculator. He would have been 4 during 9/11. 2025 minus 1997. I think he needs to grow up a little bit. It's not an indictment of being critical of this perspective. However, this is the perspective of people at war. Okay. So after 9/11, on 9/11/2001, I was like 13 or 14 years old. I forget my exact age, but I saw airplanes fly into buildings, set those buildings on fire. And then for 3 or 4 hours, my teachers kept the television on because they knew it was such a crazy historic event. And we watched civilian Americans jump from the building to their death because they didn't want to be burned alive in the building fire. Then we watched those buildings collapse, presumably killing dozens, hundreds, thousands of people, right? So that was 3,000 dead. Now, when it comes to the war on terror immediately after that, if you would have asked anybody 6 months to a year out from the war on terror, they would have been like, what should we do about Arab Muslims who support terrorist organizations, and what should we do about the terrorists? The answers universally would have been, let's kill them all. And then when it's like, oh, well, if we accidentally kill civilians, then won't we be as bad as the terrorists? Almost all of the Americans who saw 9/11 and took it as a personal attack on their country, they would say, I don't care, right? And it's not because if you show them an injured child, they're not going to take care of an injured child. It's not because if you don't show them an innocent child, they're not going to, try to prevent and, harm and save the child and all that kind of stuff. It's because when you go down to the human psychology, down to the lizard brain that we all have, we come up with tribal binary thinking, and we will extend empathy and kindness and understanding to people who are a member of our tribe, but we will not extend it to the enemy tribe because that makes war infinitely harder. If you think about the fact that this is something that Dick Winters, the infantryman from Band of Brothers, dealt with. He ran across a field. He ambushed an SS division. But when he ambushed the SS division, he pulled up on this hill and he sees this like 17-year-old kid in uniform who's staring him in the eyes, and he catches him without his weapon. His weapon's on the ground. Now, if they were in a firefight shooting at each other, then neither one of them would have cared. They would have both killed each other. But Dick Winters, in this moment of vulnerability for the other person, sees a human, like he sees like a 17-year-old kid. Well, guess what he does? He overrides his sense of empathy and sympathy, and he shoots the kid in the chest. And that's something that he dealt with psychologically for the rest of his life. But the truth is that if you're going to fight a war, then you're going to have to override your sense of empathy and sympathy in order to win the war. And you're like, okay, well, this is evil. This is bad. This is the worst parts of human psychology. I think even the people who undergo those psychological transformations will admit that in hindsight. However, this has been a necessary part of human psychology in conflict since we were incepted as a species. So come on, like you can Noah Samsen can act like, oh man, these Israelis are so bad because they don't sympathize or empathize with the Israeli, with the Palestinian civilians that they're slaughtering. And it's like, okay, let's go do a street interview with Hamas. Let's go do a street interview with the kids. Let's go watch, I don't know, the 10,000 videos of plays of Palestinian children being brought up in public school where they reenact Hamas slaughters. Like as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do it now. Like, I get that this is annoying, and it's annoying for me to do to like segue away from the video because we're supposed to have like clean segments. But let's just look up Palestinian children play Hamas. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. So literally. So top 3 videos already pulled up. I'm sure here's another one. There's more down here, more down here, more down here. So right here, this is a 1-minute clip. We got all these children, literally dozens of them, being taught that Hamas is based. You should go do obstacle courses. You should practice with weapons, all that kind of stuff. Crawl through tunnels, etc., etc. Position of attention, learning how to use weapons. And these kids are like 6, right? They're like 8. These are kids, but they're being indoctrinated to be warriors. Same thing here. These kids are like 8. And we literally have, oh no, we got an Israeli hostage. We have a soldier. We have someone cheering it on. We have a woman in a burqa who's only 8 or 10 with a knife fighting Israeli soldiers and then stabbing them in holy war.
They call them the Pioneers of Liberation and the Sword of Jerusalem summer camps, run by Hamas and Islamic Jihad. These videos, posted by Memory, the Middle East Media Research Institute, show what the youth of Gaza are doing this summer.
We did not come here to enjoy ourselves or to play or anything like that. We came with our souls, our blood, our martyrs, and are wounded to sacrifice ourselves for Palestine and for our people.
This promotional video urges students from primary school, high school, and college to participate. In the camp, target practice involves AK-47s, anti-tank weapons, and video simulations.
So that in the next phase, Allah willing, these boys will be able to confront the plundering enemy and disfigure its face in the next war.
In May, Hamas and Islamic Jihad called the 11-day war with Israel the Sword of Jerusalem. Their goal, preparing the next generation for the next war.
We say to the enemy, these children picked up these weapons, and we train them how to use them, as well as how to take security measures, so that they will follow in the footsteps of their fathers and take up arms, Allah willing.
I chose to spend my vacation in the Pioneers of Liberation summer camp in order to continue the path of my father, the martyred commander Walid Shamala Abu Bilal, and in order to strengthen our determination and to liberate Jerusalem, Allah willing.
These young men and boys learn anti-Semitism at an early age.
We asked Hitler why he left some of you alive. He did so in order to show us how wicked you are. We will come to you from under the ground and hammer fear into your hearts, and above the ground we will tear your bodies apart with our rockets. Scram into the shelters, you mice, you sons of a Jewish woman.
Memory has been monitoring these summer camps for 10 years.
The videos and images from those camps illustrate and reflect the way Hamas is operating and deepening its control. In 10, 15 years from now, the kids will be adults or parents and maybe even an officials in Gaza and decision makers. So the extremism in Gaza will be even worse.
Hamas took over the Gaza Strip 13 years ago in a bloody battle with the Palestinian Authority.
So since birth, this generation has been raised only on the values of these terrorist movements. This is, of course, only deepening the crisis there, thwarting any chance for dignified, peaceful life for the kids and for all the residents of Gaza.
She feels the international community needs to speak up about these camps. While these kids are in camp, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is visiting nations like Mauritania, pledging to continue the war against Israel.
You guys get the point, right? So Noah Samsen, again, like I'm just going to bring this up just so I can reinforce it to you, okay? Accusing Ethan Klein of lies of omission, telling Palestinian side of the story. Listen, I have no problem if you're sympathetic to Palestine. I have no problems if you're sympathetic to Palestinians. I have no problem if you have friends who are Palestinian, who are in Gaza right now, who are getting screwed over. I have no problems with that at all. But he just posted a 3 to 4 minute interview of Jewish civilians in the wake of October 23. What was it? Was it 2023? Being unsympathetic to teenage and children casualties in the war in Gaza. And it took me 3 seconds to find children as young as 7 or 8 being trained to be terrorists when they grow up. So, yeah. So listen, if you want to say that is lies of omission, tell both sides of the story. Kay Soko says Israel teaches their side, the other side is evil, both doing the same thing. Well, listen, it's easy to believe that the other side is evil when they're training to kill you their entire lives. What was it? I've waited my whole life to kill you. Meme. There's this meme that goes around the internet every now and then, and it's a kid in like a soldier uniform, and there's a kid who's playing jihadist, and the meme says, I've waited my whole life to kill you. I don't know why I can't find it now. But it exists. I've seen it dozens of times. And yeah, of course, when you're trained in the United States, when you're brought up in the United States, you're brought up that you're brought up that jihadist terrorists are obviously evil. It's easy. And a lot of jihadist terrorists are evil and they should get killed. But that doesn't mean that they can't look in a mirror image and see the American warriors who are coming to their lands in order to plunder their petroleum and support the state of Israel, and that they can't come up with a coherent narrative for why we're evil and why we deserve violence as well. So, yeah. So, K-Soko says, but the other side feels the same way. We shouldn't be using our weapons to force peace. Like Trump said, we will have peace through power. Let's do it. We'll see. But anyways, I've yapped enough distracting from Mr. Noah Samsen's pedophile goatee. So let's get back to the content.
Really bad form to cite street interviews as being some meaningful indicator of widespread attitudes. But again, with Israel, it's just different. Not just because these attitudes align perfectly with the wider Israeli polling data, but also because it's almost impossible to find anyone in Israel saying anything else. The amount of truly anti-Zionist Israelis living in Israel numbers in the hundreds. This figure is according to anti-Zionist Israelis themselves. They are alone.
Everyone around us are completely genocidal maniacs. Everyone around you. And
Abby Martin is a very strong-wing left-wing propagandist. I'm not saying like, oh, we can discount everything she's ever said, but she is like a Noam Chomsky America bad leftist. All right.
I don't mean it metaphorically. It's not metaphorically. It's literally everybody. It will be your family. It will be your teachers. It will be your colleagues. Everyone around you. So you're alone. Even if we will gather all of those anti-Zionists together from Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa or whatever, it will not be more than, I don't know, 500.
There's no tangible internal opposition within the country. The Israeli left is a myth. This is reflected once more in the openly genocidal sentiment we see on social media from IDF terrorists who have been willingly, gleefully, posting their own war crimes on the internet for everyone to see for a year and a half.
They go into the homes of Palestinians, and they're often clearly staying there, and they just smash them up, and they film themselves smashing them up. They also delight in going through women's underwear drawers, and this is a sort of recurring obsession. You have to see Israeli soldier videos in the context of the broader output of Israeli society.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. I would press it right now. Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
There's an Israeli song called This Was My Home. And what they would do is dress up as caricatures of obviously what they perceive Palestinians to be, being sung mockingly to people who no longer have homes. We're not looking at some sort of obscure subculture within Israeli society. This is mainstream Israeli society.
People have been keeping tabs on this. There are a number of archives documenting the names and crimes of these Israeli terrorists. One of the most thorough of these databases was created by a historian, Lee Mordecai. It's called Bearing Witness to the Israel-Gaza War. It is presently over 100.
I feel like I need to let Noah go, but we're still waiting for these. So the YouTubers who backed a genocide. Okay, I want to get there. We're gonna give him the entire runtime because it is 1 hour. It's not, that's not super crazy of a runtime to react to. So I want to give him his full runtime.
20 pages long with extremely detailed footnotes. There's that one tweet that's like, hitting translate from Hebrew on Twitter is like discovering a lost page from Mein Kampf. This holds up pretty well. Here, let's try it on this tweet. The survivors of the 2025 Holocaust are proof that every trace of the murderous mutations in Gaza must be erased, from delivery rooms to the last elderly person in Gaza. 100% dead in Gaza. That there is Barashi Kinneret, the host of a mainstream Israeli news channel. One more example that I found particularly striking was the Right to Rape protests. A group of Israeli prison guards were placed under investigation after security camera footage leaked showing them gang raping a Palestinian prisoner. The Israeli public reacted in uproar, not because of what they were alleged to have done, but because they were potentially going to be punished for it. Protests were held outside of the prison, attended by top Israeli officials. Mainstream Israeli news channels brought on one of the alleged rapist soldiers for interviews, supporting him and his right to kill and rape Palestinian hostages. Again, this wasn't some extremist fluke. It was reflected in broader polling of the Israeli public. According to a poll taken around that time, 65% of Israeli Jews opposed criminal prosecution for soldiers suspected of raping Palestinian detainees. And 47% of Jewish Israelis answered that Israel does not need to abide by international law and maintain moral values in the war. Simply put, it's a genocidal society, top to bottom. Perhaps the most complicit party to enabling this genocide, aside from the material support of Western governments, is the Western media. As previously mentioned, this support largely takes two forms. The more overt kinds, like spreading misinformation and explicit Israeli state and IDF propaganda, and the other more subtle, yet significantly more frequent and effective, is that of manufacturing consent. Reporting on Palestinians has some clear differences in coverage, language, and framing when compared with other groups. In the first 100 days after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, 262 children were killed. In the first 100 days of Israel's assault on Gaza, more than 10,000 children were killed. The true number is likely much higher, but mentions of child deaths and related terms were 33.4% higher for Ukraine than for Gaza. During this time frame, CNN mentioned child victims of the war 2,446 times for Ukraine versus 2,110 times for Gaza, and MSNBC mentioned child victims of the Ukraine war 1,775 times versus 1,522 times for Gaza. This means that for each child death from Ukraine, children receive the equivalent of 16.1 mentions on air, whereas children in Gaza receive the equivalent of 0.36 mentions. MSNBC did not run a single segment in the first 100 days that focused specifically and exclusively on the plight of children in Gaza. MSNBC ran over a dozen segments.
Oh my God, he's making the same point 7 different ways. I understand. And what I would say is, not only is the United States an ally of Israel and probably in some way, form, or fashion supports Israel over Gaza, and therefore doesn't want to do news segments that makes Israel look bad, but also that we just watched the videos of Palestinian children being trained for terror operations, and therefore it's easier to dismiss the dead of Palestine than it is to dismiss the dead of the Ukraine. As an example, logically, from a Western perspective, okay, if a Ukrainian child, let's say that they're being trained from the age of 8 into the age of 18 in order to fight Russians, they are being trained to load AKs, fire AKs. They're being taught counter ambush. They're talking about IEDs probably. They're talking about drones. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. But what they're doing is they're going to attack the uniformed enemy that is in their country that is being invaded. That is, relatively speaking, justifiable morally. When you look at the tactics used by Hamas, when you look at what they're encouraging their children to believe is accurate, we literally just watched this video 30 seconds ago. They're talking about taking a woman who is in a burqa, concealing a knife on their person, and then stabbing people to death on the streets. Now, within the play, thank God, they were allegedly stabbing IDF soldiers, but in real life, oftentimes stabbing, shooting, and bombing attacks conducted by Hamas are indiscriminate. They attack civilians. And we actually just got done with Noah Samsen giving us justification for why they are morally justified in slaughtering civilians. So it's easier to dismiss the death of Palestinian children if they are being trained to ignore the civilians on the opposite side. It literally makes it easier for Israelis to ignore civilian deaths because they're saying there's no such thing as civilians because they're all being propagandized in order to hate and kill all of us. It actually makes the slaughter of each side morally easier, and Noah Samsen is contributing to it rhetorically. So, Jesus Christ, right? Like, I get it. You're not descriptively wrong, but you're also playing into it. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Hill.Williams says, this is where a hard lefty goes, well, they don't have a choice to train child soldiers. There's a genocide. Exactly. Exactly. Serenade Swan says, how do you feel about the takeaway that woke is being put away in America because lefties and minorities have overreacted to Israeli actions in the war and Jews in position of power in U.S. overreacted in their own right and put woke away by various means? Hey, listen, whatever needs to be done, okay? If powerful American Jews realize that they would be cannibalized by progressivism along with the whites, and that's what evaporated support for the progressive agenda. You know, listen, I know really good progressive people who care about really good policy. There are also a lot of really dumb progressives who support wildly stupid policies. So if this opens up some level of sobriety in American politics, then, you know, it is what it is, right? That I'm not going to complain about that. Conservative liberalism says Hamas believes the Israelis are in their country unfairly too, or at least that's the propaganda they push. They don't have nuanced discussions on the borders of the wars. It's just settlements. Right. So then you get to slaughter Israeli civilians indiscriminately because they all support the war. Right. Anyways, sorry for yapping, but sometimes these people with pedophile mustaches, they don't see the consequences of their own rhetoric, and yet they say it anyways. It's like if we took everything that Noah Samsen said at face value, we now understand that Israel's bad. It's conducting a genocide. Ethan Klein lied by omission, and Israelis are so bad that you actually could rape and slaughter them because they all participate in the war complex, and we are complicit in the genocide. That's the logical inference that we take from this video, is that, yeah, actually slaughtering Israeli civilians is acceptable. So, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. Serenade Swan says, we come to listen to you yap. Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. I really do. Woo! Sorry, I need to pace myself because I am taking a healthy chunk of psychic damage, but we're doing okay. We're halfway through.
Focusing specifically on the plight of Ukrainian children during the first 100 days of that conflict. Emotive language was barely ever used to describe the killing of Palestinians. This comes despite the vastly higher death toll over the same period. On CNN and MSNBC, the words war crime and genocide were mentioned.
Ooh, guys, guess what? It's noon. Do you know what time it is? It's Dad Bod Fitness time. So you do not have to participate with me, and we are going to continue the content momentarily. However, I want to point this out. While I was working my desk job, I decided that I was not going to be able to work out. I wasn't going to be able to go to the gym. I wasn't going to be able to work out regularly. Despite that being true, I have lifted weights 2 to 3 times a week at my desk. And so what I encourage you people at home, anyone who has a little bit of extra cash, I recommend that you pick up a set of 20 or 25 or 15 pound dumbbells. And what we're going to do around lunchtime every day, because I'm assuming that half of you, 3/4 of you, 80% of you are watching me while you're at work. We are going to lift weights while we're at work. So we'll continue consuming the content. But I'm also going to lift weights while we're doing this. So if I'm a little bit weirdly out of breath while I'm making comments, it is what it is. But we're going to get stronger. We're going to get bigger arms. We're going to get bigger chesticles. We're going to get bigger backs while we're consuming content and while we're streaming. So if you don't have your weights, that's totally fine. This is the first time that I've ever told you about it. However, if you are working a 9 to 5, or if you know that you're going to consistently be able to watch my stream around noon, then I want you to buy a pair of dumbbells that you can reasonably lift. Okay. My recommendation is 15 to 25 pounds. I have my 25-pound weights. I'm going to be doing back and biceps today. So the first exercise that I'm going to do is traditional curls. I'm going to use my knee in order to, I'm actually going to stand up and show you. So I'm going to pick up my knee. I'm going to brace my elbow against my knee, and I'm going to curl, and I'm going to do normal bicep curls. I'm going to do hammer curls, and I'm going to do reverse curls. Then we're going to move into the back. But it's noon, so we are dad bod fitness time along with I'm a girl. Oh man. Well, listen, girls and trans gals, you don't have to work out. Don't worry about it. You guys can go do cardio later. It's fine. But chest and triceps tomorrow, absolutely. Absolutely conserve liberalism. So get your dumbbells if you have them, okay? All right. Girls have muscles too. It's true. Girls can lift weights, but I know some of them prefer cardio over lifting weights. So girls need, it is called dad bod fitness for a while, or for a reason, okay? So we're going to add back in the video. We're going to continue to react, but if I am moving my arms in weird ways off of screen, it is not because I am doing anything funky. I'm not pulling a Vosh. I am just I'm just working out, and you should too. And you should do bicep curls, hammer curls, and reverse curls. So yeah. All right. Let's continue the content while we're working out.
17 times more in the context of Ukraine than in the context of Gaza. Ukrainian victims were labeled as subject to war crimes or genocide 1,790 times compared to just 104 mentions for Palestinians. We still see this now, obviously. During the hostage exchanges as a result of the latest so-called ceasefire, for example, you may notice that Palestinians detained without charges in Israeli jails, of which there are thousands, they are referred to as prisoners, whereas the IDF soldiers, that is, actual militants that were captured by Hamas on October 7th, are referred to as hostages. One of the greatest tweets of all time that I've ever seen described the capture of an IDF terrorist during October 7th as him being kidnapped from a tank. Kidnapped from a tank. Kidnapped from a tank. Coverage has been focused almost.
Listen, he is that's a point there. That person should not have tweeted kidnapped from a tank, because obviously if he's in a tank, he's a combatant. However, I would say that the conditions in which the prisoners are kept are probably why there's sanitized language around militants who are kept inside Israeli jails, because we're assuming that Israeli prisoners are receiving 2 hots and a cot. They get 2 meals a day, they get a place to sleep, and hopefully they're not being raped to death, although there are a few that have been raped to death. Whereas what did happen with several Israeli hostages were they were beheaded, they were denied medical care, they were starved, they were shot, all that kind of stuff. And so the reason why we use the sanitized language for people in prison is because they probably will not get slaughtered or raped in prison or jail, although it does happen. Whereas the hostages who are in Palestinian care, in Hamas's care, I should be more specific, in Hamas's care, have suffered sexual, physical abuse and malnutrition and slaughter and rape. So yeah, that's a difference in sanitized language. What guys? I'm just using my shake weight. Nothing to see here. True.
Almost exclusively on the condition of these IDF quote-unquote hostages, rarely making mention of Israel's contribution to their condition, like how they starve out the population of Gaza, which obviously affects all of the people in Gaza, including the Israeli hostages in Gaza, or the fact that they rain airstrikes on them all day, every day for 16 months straight. Is that good for your health? Is that healthy? The same cannot be said of coverage of the Palestinian hostages. Despite emerging from these Israeli jails with clear evidence of extreme physical abuse, images of the Palestinian hostages are rarely, if ever, shown.
تعالوا جوا، تعالوا في الغرفة جوا، تعالوا غرفة، تعالوا هون، تعالوا جوا، تعالوا.
The assumption is just granted. It's relied on that they're terrorists, criminals, and whatever else. So whatever happens to them, that's just what happens in jail. The Western media lies in other subtle ways, like burying the lead in stories and deceptively framing headlines.
Real quickly, part of the reason why it's so easy for Western media to do that, though, is because there's Palestinian propagandists who lie about the stuff. For instance, there was a popular tweet that was going around that was showing a woman who looked normal, and then it showed the woman who was getting released from custody and all her skin was burned and disfigured. They didn't mention in the tweet that the reason why she was burned and disfigured is because she set off a suicide bomb that didn't fully explode. So they were trying to blame the Israeli government for abuse when this was a suicide bomber who hadn't been killed by their own device. So is it wrong? Is it lies? Is it information warfare? 100%. Is it bad? Should it be criticized? 100%. Everything that he's saying can be Uno reversed.
This is especially apparent in coverage of things like ceasefire negotiations. These outlets have consistently framed the lack of agreement to terms as being Hamas's fault, that they won't agree to Israel's terms, but they interestingly decide to use only one definition of the ceasefire agreement, which is Israel's definition, that being one which is only temporary, with no guarantees that the genocide will end after these temporary pauses. They're not really ceasefires, but in order to frame Hamas as disagreeing with them, that's what they have to call them. The ceasefire
A ceasefire is not a peace plan. A ceasefire is a temporary stopping of hostilities. That's definitionally true, but let's see what he has to say about it.
that ended up being agreed upon in January was the exact same ceasefire that Hamas had agreed to over 6 months prior. Israel continually sabotaged these negotiations, but if you read any of these mainstream outlets, you wouldn't know that, not until the very end of these articles, at least. The latest reporting on these negotiations continued this trend of misleading coverage, such as this story from early February. The majority of the article, headline included, frames Hamas as the instigator to a potential ceasefire failure. However, both independent observers and Israeli officials themselves acknowledged that it was actually Israel who had already broken the terms of the ceasefire agreement immediately after it was implemented. To anyone with a brain and eyes, this would be apparent given the evidence we have of these violations, but because these outlets didn't show their readers that and also prioritize the input of party committing genocide, this citation here is crucial for its readers. They need to see this to understand what's happening. But the New York Times waited to mention it until 9 paragraphs in, like basically the end of the article. This is a textbook example of bearing the lead, but it also goes beyond that into just a lie, right? The entire article is framed in precisely the opposite way of what this confirmed fact revealed. If the Times weren't running cover for a genocide, the headline of this article would read, "Israel violates ceasefire, confirmed by Israeli officials." Probably the most insane example of this sort of thing is the following headline, once again from the New York Times. Lebanon's ceasefire appears to hold despite Israeli strike. If Israel struck, they violated the ceasefire. The ceasefire did not hold. Israel violated it. It's just absurd. The genocide is...
Hold on. Israel said it had targeted militants headed to a rocket facility, but neither Israel nor Hezbollah seemed keen to immediately return to full-scale fighting. Bruh. Bruh. Noah! Noah! Do you not expect me to be able to read? Do you not expect me to be able to read the words on my screen? If Hezbollah militants were headed towards a facility filled with rockets, presumably so they could recover the rockets and then fire them into the state of Israel, then that would be them making a move in order to violate the ceasefire or engage in military aggression. This would make them legitimate targets. And so what the article is saying, just in these 2 sentences, is that there were militants, they were moving towards weapons, Israel blew up those militants, but Israel and Hezbollah have said, hey, those guys were doing their own thing. We still want the ceasefire. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. Don't do that, okay? It's insane, because if I was still lifting weights, I wouldn't have noticed that he was doing this thing, but he's accusing people of lying through omission. He's accusing people of burying the lead. He's accusing people of not, giving sufficient context in order to understand everything, and yet he's doing it in the same video in which he is criticizing that behavior. Somebody said, do you have a Discord? I don't know why it keeps doing that. The hide use copy button. Why doesn't it just give me a link? Edit invite link. 7 days, no limit. Generate a new link. How do I copy it and have a generated link? I work in a sweatshop. Well, you know what? Discord is like my sweatshop, okay? All right, just DM me on Twitter. All right, Counterconor. 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 Just follow me. I'll probably follow you back because I follow everybody back. And then just DM me or at me. I'll send you the link. I don't know why it doesn't work in YouTube chat, but it doesn't. Oh, yeah, exactly. Casey says basically Hezbollah disavowed their own militants in order to continue the ceasefire. Yeah. Or Twitch chat. When I posted, it goes to both. All right. Well, yeah, just DM me. I'll get you the Discord link somehow. There's so many back-end things that we need to fix, but obviously we need to generate content. Speaking of which, we already had somebody, we're probably 2 hours into the content. We did have a very generous donation at the beginning of the thing. Mr. Michael Smith donated. Congrats on the new gig. Thank you kindly. Now, that being said, ad revenue is obviously going to help us out. Generating new content and then posting it consistently is going to help us out. However, if you're broke, don't worry about it. You know, if you're just paying bills, if you're just surviving, I don't need your money. However, if you do have cash, if you do have a 401k, if you do have a retirement, if you do work a good job, if you do have a stable salary, if you are able to take care of your family, then a tip is appreciated. Doing a super chat, doing a Twitch sub, doing a YouTube membership, it is all appreciated. So if you have the dollar dues, please spend them. If you don't have the dollar dues, don't worry about it. Also, liking the stream. If you are broke or if you just don't want to give me money, that's totally fine. Like the stream. That way other people know that we're live. And then also subscribe if you're not subscribed. Some light wrist weights would probably be pretty chill for that, though. Well, no, I'm going to do full things. I do have a Twitch. It's just kind of small compared to the YouTube. The YouTube's bigger than the Twitch. Anyways, we've been giving Noah Samsen a platform and with to watch. But, dude, we're halfway through the video. And all he's done is say, actually, Israel bad. Okay, Israel bad. We got it. We understand it. And I'm going to give him like another 5 minutes to wrap this up. But if he doesn't wrap it up, then I'm going to, as a matter of fact, let's just move 10 minutes ahead and see if he's still talking about Israel bad.
With the BBC's repeated genocide denial, evident in repeated instances of
cut off as terrorists played with their bloody breasts like a football. They cut off the breasts of women and throw them around.
Broader media system that allowed it to happen. Let's now return to Ethan's video. In the context,
Jesus Christ, I literally skipped 15 more minutes of Israel bad. So, okay, Noah Samsen, I'm not trying to be rude to your coverage. However, you created a video, the YouTubers who backed a genocide, and I assumed that there would be substantive evidence that they backed a genocide, but you spent 43 minutes describing the genocide. I probably understood at 15 minutes where you were going with it, and I definitely understood by minute 30. I'm sorry for skipping 15 minutes of your video, but we all understand it. We got 60 people in the chat. They all understand Israel's bad. It kills people. There's 60,000 dead people guaranteed. There's 185,000 people who have been killed incidentally as a result of the conflict. There's 2 million people who are living in tents because 90% of the buildings are destroyed. Israelis are very callous to Gazan civilian deaths because they view them all as terrorists. And therefore, logically, I'm going to make an inference. Israel kind of deserves what it got on 10/7, okay? So it is what it is. We understand. Tell me why the YouTubers are bad too.
Content nuke, you can find just about every type of what we just looked at in terms of manufacturing consent. Ethan spreads atrocity propaganda. He shares the Hamas mass rape hoax, the same hoax that was used by the Western media, the US government, and the Israeli government to justify a genocide. He said,
okay. Sorry, still lifting, so it's a little bit. 7, 8, 9, 10. That's my right arm done for regular bicep curls. Okay, so he cites the screams before silence. All of the Noah Samsen, Hamas Piker fans dismiss this piece, screams for forced silence. And yet, there's a portion of it that you could say is debunked, which, I don't know, dead babies, raped people, whatever. But we already have half a dozen hostages who survived, who talked about sexual assaults and rapes that happened before executions. The morgue crew and the criminal forensic people who took photos when they did go out there, they found women who were executed, who were tied to trees and tied to poles, who had their panties pulled around their legs, and who were murdered. I'm assuming that that is circumstantial evidence of rape. And then we have 2 or 3 hostages who talk specifically about their sexual assaults or rapes. So if you want to say that the media exaggerated how systemic the rape was in order to justify this genocide, that's fine. But if you want to say no rapes happened, no sexual assaults happened, and it's inconsequential to how we should perceive the organization of Hamas, you're full of shit, or you're retarded, or you have the reading comprehension of a middle schooler. So I'll let Noah Samsen say what he needs to say, but there's 100% circumstantial evidence of sexual assault and rape, and there's probably 24 either secondhand accounts and firsthand accounts. And by secondhand accounts, I mean witnesses to rapes and executions. And then there is for sure half a dozen firsthand accounts of rapes that have been videotaped and put on Israeli television. So yeah, let's see how big of a piece of shit, because who is it? He took issue with the fact that Hassan Piker was a rape denialist. Let's see if Noah Samsen is a rape denialist.
Cites the same sources that these parties cite when they go on stage to legitimize more military killing machinery shipments to Israel.
And October 7, last year, Hamas committed horrific acts of sexual violence. Cheryl, I thank you for all your work to bring to light the horrors of this issue and for your film about what happened on October 7.
In his video, Ethan spreads overt misinformation, just straight up lies about Hezbollah and Ansar Allah, or the Houthis, in order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets to attack the Houthis. He also cites a documentary about Ansar Allah, which he uses as proof of the claim that they brought back slavery, when the documentary wasn't even about the Houthis. It was about the Yemeni government before the Houthi takeover. He spreads long debunked Nakba denialist talking points that have been used for decades to legitimize Israeli colonization of Palestine. Ethan cites sources that contradict his own claims directly, such as the UN report he claims proved.
Let's actually read this, because I think Noah Samsen might be stupid. Overall, based on the totality of information gathered from multiple and independent sources at different locations, there are reasonable grounds to believe the conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations across the Gaza periphery, including in the form of rape and gang rape during October 7, 2023. Credible circumstantial information, which may be indicative of some forms of sexual violence, including genital mutilation, sexualized torture, or cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment, was also gathered. That's what the word says. That's what the paragraph says. Let's see what Noah Samsen says.
It was the Hamas mass rapes allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened,
which the report itself.
The mission team was unable to establish the prevalence of sexual violence and concludes that the overall magnitude, scope, and specific attribution of these violations would require a fully fledged investigation. A comprehensive investigation would enable the information to be expanded in locations which the mission team was not able to visit, and to build the required trust with survivors and victims of conflict-related sexual violence who may be reluctant to come forward at this point. So the first paragraph says, based off of currently available information, there were rapes and gang rapes, and there was genital mutilation and sexual violence against Israeli civilians. That's what the first paragraph says. Then this second thing says that if we want to know more about these sexual assaults and rapes, then we need to expand into a larger investigation. Let's see how Noah Samsen, the feminist, characterizes this paragraph.
Denies. He spends 20 minutes.
Denies! You fucking moron! You fucking dipshit! Sorry, Ken. Sorry, Ken. Sorry, Ma. Sorry, Ma. I apologize. I apologize, Ma, and I'm sorry, Ken. Okay? I'm sorry for using bad words. Okay? When I bump into a male feminist who doesn't know how to read, who says that rapes didn't happen, and the paragraph says something different, I get enthusiastic for my distaste about that person. So let's watch that again and just make sure that what I just watched happened.
Legitimize Israeli colonization of Palestine. Ethan cites sources that contradict his own claims directly, such as the UN report he claims proves the Hamas mass rapes allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened,
which the report itself denies.
Noah Samsen, you are a moron. You're a very dumb person. If we go back to this page, we're going to read it again, just because, like, honestly, like, Noah Samsen viewers must be middle schoolers who are incapable of reading. Overall, based on the totality of information gathered from multiple and independent sources at different locations, there are reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations across the Gaza periphery, including the form of rape and gang rape during the October 7th, 2023 attacks. Credible circumstantial information which may be indicative of some forms of sexual violence, including genital mutilation, sexualized torture, or cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment was also gathered. Circumstantial information which may be indicative of forms. So what they're saying is they have witness testimony and they have photos that indicate sexual violence, genital mutilation, sexualized torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. They're also saying that based off of witness testimony, they believe that there were rapes and gang rapes during October 7, 2023. This isn't a denial. This is saying that you have circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence doesn't mean no evidence. It means that you don't have proof positive. Okay? And then this is not a denial. I literally think this moron doesn't know what words mean. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Clues it happened.
Which the report
denies. This is not a denial. Let's read it one more time. The mission team was unable to establish the prevalence. The word prevalence means frequency. Let's just make sure that I'm not stupid real quick. Noah Samsen, you absolute dipshit. Definition. The proportion of a population who have a specified characteristic in a given time period, the factor condition of being prevalent, common. So the mission team was unable to establish how common sexual violence and concludes that the overall magnitude, which is another synonym for prevalence, scope, which is another synonym, and specific attribution, who did it, whether or not it was civilians or Hamas of these violations, would require a full-fledged investigation. That doesn't mean that they didn't happen, you dipstick. Sorry, Ken. Sorry, Ma. I'm doing my very best. A comprehensive investigation would enable the information base to be expanded in locations which the mission team was not able to visit and to build the required trust with survivors' victims. They're saying it requires further investigation, not a denial. You absolute dipstick. You dummy. You moron. You stupid fish. You goldfish buffoon. You pedophile mustached freak. Anyways, holy Fazoli, is this guy a moron? He's not special. He's just dumb. Well, he's a wildly successful, stupid person. So that's what we have to contend with. Nothing like a little bit of rape denial to get the blood flowing, huh? Nothing like a little bit of illiteracy to get the blood pumping, huh? Jonah Boy says, Noah just wants to be another Hassan, but he wants to fudge as many of his fans instead of escorts and celebs. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. All right, so we got 15 minutes left. We established that Israel is bad, according to Noah Samsen. And he just denied the rapes because he doesn't know how to read, which should be surprising, but it's not. And then he's attacking Ethan still. So there's 16 minutes left in the video. Let's see if he can wrap it up in a way that's not completely stupid. I'm losing faith in that capacity.
Report itself denies. He spends 20 minutes.
It literally, I just need to say this one more time. The report does not deny it. It says that it needs further investigation. He doesn't know how to read. He doesn't know how to read and understand words.
It's in the video smearing a 19-year-old survivor of the U.S.-backed Saudi genocide in Yemen as a terrorist with zero credible evidence. He makes
zero credible evidence. do I need to show? I guess I'll show this, right? He's not showing anything. And one of the things that Chud Logic and other people complain about is that people make allegations without showing the evidence. And so we have this guy. That's a commercial ship that has been taken. He travels onto the commercial ship under the watch of the Houthi militants. He has photos with AK-47s. He posts about being ready to die in holy struggle. There's him with another AK-47 and a magazine thing. And he also like refers to himself as a militant. So we're just lying. We're just coping. And then he sings about being ready to die in holy struggle. Here's him with more things. He talks about hanging out with hostages. So he's not just a random teenager. He's a Houthi propagandist. Okay. Then let's see what he wants to do. Tweet about Zionists. There's one in here. What does he want to do to Zionists? X.com. I normally don't type in X.com. I normally type in Tim Houthi Chalamet Zionist tweet. It's got to be in here. Oh, yeah. Here's him showing all of Israel getting nuked. Very cool. There's one in here. I saved it to another video where he shows somebody. It's a medieval picture of somebody being impaled with a spike. And he says, this is what I want to do to Zionists. So he carries AKs. He wears ammo. He talks about nuking Israel. He says that he's ready to die in holy and armed struggle. And he might have deleted the tweet, but there is 100% a tweet where he shows a medieval torture picture of somebody being impaled on a spike. And he's like, this is what we're going to do to all Zionists, which, by the way, according to Noah Samsen in his own video, that means 97% of Jews in Israel. So I'm supposed to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. I'm supposed to extend charity to him. Why? Why would I extend charity to him? You're insane. Yeah. Good Lord. This guy is a flippin' moron.
It's a number of transparently false anti-Semitism accusations, like his claim that Israel's ban on new account signups from Israel was anti-Semitic.
Around the end of the year when people...
Hold up. How is it not? How do you know that it wouldn't be the 3% of the Israelis who protest the alleged Gazan genocide? How do you know that it wouldn't be them who are creating Twitch accounts? You are literally banning people because of their nationality. How is that not anti-Semitic? You can say it's anti-Zionist if you want to parse words. Sorry. Just need to keep doing my dad bod fitness. But what the fuck, Noah?
People started talking about anti-Semitism on Twitch. Dan Saltman discovered the Israel ban when he was sent the code proving the block happened.
In reality, the ban also affected millions of non-Jews living in Israel and Palestinians in Palestine, as shown in the evidence he himself cites. The IP ban went into effect in both. Like all these Western liberal outlets, Ethan just takes the State Department line of thinking when it comes to terrorism, which his video is ostensibly a crusade against. By his own definition of terrorism, both the US and Israel are the largest terrorist organizations in the world, given their history of killing millions of innocent civilians across the globe. His focus is not on them, though, rather the groups that they consider to be terrorists, aka, the bad guys. He actually...
Okay. So Noah Samsen's a moron, and it pisses me off that 852,000 people watched this video uncritically. Okay. Hopefully some of them watched it critically. Let me explain something. I'm going to go full screen for this, just so you guys can hopefully understand something. I know that you beautiful 70 souls across platform, you already understand this, so I'm really preaching to the choir, but hopefully there's other people who watch the video and they learn something new, okay? When the United States conducts military operations, they have the capacity to walk into a city and shoot every single man, woman, and child and animal living in that city. They have the technological and logistical capacity to do so. However, the rules of engagement state that the only time that you can really engage is if you are believed to be yourself, or believe yourself to be, or civilians or your comrades to be in imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. So that means that you need to see somebody with a gun, with a mortar, with a rocket launcher, with a grenade launcher, with a this, with a that. You have to be able to articulate who has a weapon and why, and then therefore you can use deadly force and you can kill them. Okay. What happens, because insurgents operate around civilian population centers, is that I'm going to bring you over here so I can look myself in the eyeballs, so I can also look you beautiful souls in the eyeballs. What happens is that because oftentimes insurgents operate around civilians, as an example, let's say they shoot a rocket propelled grenade outside of a building window. What will happen is an American tank or an Israeli tank will rotate its main cannon and fire a tank shell into that window. And what will happen is that room will explode. And if there were civilians inside that room, they die with the insurgent. Those are the civilian casualties that happen in war. And not just that, he's talking about how the United States is like a monomaniacal evil villain that just slaughters civilians for fun. That's not true. And if you actually go to the Iraqi Body Count Project, which is an anti-American tracking of Iraqi civilian casualties, even they say that 80% of the casualties within the Iraq conflict is a civil war between Sunni and Shia militias. 80% of the people who are killed in conflict are not killed by United States soldiers bringing a machine gun out and going, ha, 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 look at all these brown people. That's not what happens. What actually happens is, one, like I said, the rules of engagement. There's collateral damage as a result of those firefights and as a result of those tank shells and artillery shells and airstrikes. That's one way that it happens. And then 80% of the way that civilians die is that gangs use the power vacuum involved in warfare in order to seize territory and resources for themselves, and they kill anyone who resists them. That's what happened in Vietnam. That's what happened in Iraq, is that we effectively took part in a civil war in which civilians were massacring each other. Okay? So to pretend, even for a second, that what happened was the United States just showed up and just blasted people for fun, it probably happened on a small scale, but that wasn't the rules of engagement. The difference between here we go. This is the actual difference. Now that you understand how the military operates, let's talk about how terrorist organizations operate, okay? Terrorist organizations, they don't care who dies as long as their group obtains more power. And particularly with jihadist terrorism, they will frame it in the way that God is the ultimate judge and arbiter of everyone's souls. And so as a result, you can kill everyone and God will sort them out. The good people will go to heaven. The bad people will go to hell. Let God figure it out, right? And so this moral pretext allows you to effectively do anything in warfare. I'm going to pull this up because this actually happened while I was in Iraq, immediately outside of the base that I was stationed at. Okay. Iraq suicide bombing pet market disabled people. I'm going to show you some of the enemies that we go up against. Let me share this. Let me remove that. Add to stage. Okay. Handicap bombers killed dozens in Iraq. This is what Noah Samsen wants to say is identical to American operations under rules of engagement. Remote-controlled explosives strapped to 2 handicapped women detonated in a coordinated attack on pet bazaars Friday, police and Iraqi officials said, killing at least 73 people in the deadliest day since U.S. sent 30,000 extra troops to the capital this spring. This was February 1st, 2008. Was this an al-Baghdadi? Let's see if it's an al-Baghdadi. Southeastern Baghdad. So this wasn't by my base, but it still happened while I was in country. I thought it happened in al-Baghdadi. There was other bad stuff that happened in al-Baghdadi, but that's okay. Let's just read this story real quick. Remote-controlled explosives strapped to 2 mentally handicapped women detonated in a coordinated attack on pet bazaars Friday. Police and Iraqi officials said, killing at least 73 people in the deadliest day since the U.S. sent 30,000 troops to the capital this spring. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said that using mentally retarded women as suicide bombers proves al-Qaeda is the most brutal and bankrupt of movements and will strengthen Iraqi resolve to reject terrorism. The struggle is not over, and there will be more time for the terrible days like this, and I think that will underscore that for the Iraqis. It will make them tougher in the fight. Associated Press records show that since the start of the war, at least 151 people have been killed in at least 17 attacks or attempted attacks by female suicide bombers, including Friday's bombings. Iraqi officials said the women in Friday's attack apparently were mentally disabled, and the explosives were detonated by remote control, indicating that they may not have been willing attackers in what could be a new method suspected Sunni insurgents to subvert stepped-up security measures. In the first attack, a woman detonated explosives hidden under her traditional black Islamic robe at around 10:20 a.m. in the central Al-Ghazal market. The weekly bazaar had been bombed several times since the war started, but recently had reemerged as a popular place to shop and stroll as Baghdad security improved and a Friday ban on driving was lifted. 4 police and hospital officials said at least 46 people were killed and more than 100 wounded. Firefighters scooped up debris scattered among the pools of blood, clothing, and pigeon carcasses. About 20 minutes later, a second female suicide bomber struck a bird market in a predominantly Shiite area in southeastern Baghdad. That blast killed as many as 27 people and wounded 67, according to police hospital officials. The attacks were the latest in a series of violent incidents that have been chipping away at Iraqi confidence in the permanence of recent security gains. Women with Down syndrome selected. So I'm not going to read the rest of this article, but what it says is that Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda kidnapped people with Down syndrome from a mental hospital, strapped bombs to them, had them walk into civilian markets populated by their co-citizens. They weren't even attacking American forces, and they killed 70 people for no frickin' reason. He wants you, Noah Samsen wants you to believe that getting into a firefight and then shooting in the direction in which you're being shot and then responding with fire that kills civilians is the same as kidnapping mentally disabled people and then killing your fellow citizens in a suicide attack via remote. Are you insane? Are you a moron? Are you dumb? I have people in my chat who are saying that Noah Samsen should be one of the people who's kidnapped. That's very funny, but incredibly messed up. Listen, man. Listen. I'm just going to say this. If any leftist who watches Noah Samsen accidentally clicks on this, you are watching a moron. You are watching a dipstick. You are watching an idiot. He doesn't understand the world. He doesn't have any professional experience. He doesn't know what law enforcement is like. He doesn't know what the military is like. He doesn't know what the world is like. He doesn't speak extra languages. He's not particularly intelligent. He's not particularly insightful. He is a dumb human being. And he is telling you platitudes in order to get you to buy into a political ideology that makes the world a worse place. Stop listening to him. He is dumb. He is making politics worse. He is making the world worse. He is making you dumber by having virtue of listen to him. Please stop. All right. Anyways, I don't know about you guys at home. I have completed my regular 3 sets of 10. I have completed of regular bicep curls. I am going to move to hammer curls as we continue to watch this piece. If you have your weights at home, please do 3 sets of 10 of hammer curls of whatever weight you are capable of doing. Let's continue.
He uses those exact words. He says they're the bad guys.
They are a designated terrorist group by the US, by the EU. These guys are clearly the bad guys.
The entire video is kind of a lie by omission, simply because of everything we just went over. How none of it is a factor, how none of the people viewing the video that are unfamiliar with what's happening would ever come away with his video knowing the full picture, knowing some of the very valid reasons why someone like Hassan might be critical of Israeli atrocity propaganda, or might support groups like the Houthis for their heroic actions in the Red Sea against a genocidal.
Okay. He's a moron, and we have to pause again. I'm so sorry. Let's let him finish the sentence.
Regime. The biggest issue, I think, is that Ethan manages to do all of this while still calling himself a stalwart ally to the Palestinians.
I've been a stalwart supporter of.
Okay. Let's show further why Noah Samsen is a dipstick. Let's try to calm down. Houthi commercial ships attacked. Here is a list of the so right now, as a matter of fact, let's pull up Google Maps. I need to pull it up on this screen so you guys don't literally see where my house is. If I ever accidentally dox myself, just know that I keep that thing on me. So let's click here. All right, I'm gonna show you guys this, and I hope that my chat will be smarter than Noah Samsen's chat. Okay. This is Yemen. This is where the Houthis are located. This is what they've taken over. They are majority Shiite, despite Yemen having a majority Sunni population. They are allied with Iran. They're receiving supplies from Iran in order to fight Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, Mecca, and Medina are obviously the, how do I phrase this? The spiritual centers of Islam. So Saudi Arabia has been at war with Yemen and doing pretty messed up stuff to them for the past decade because of they don't want a Iranian sympathetic terrorist organization in their back door. Okay. This is the Suez Canal. Okay. It's one of the most important trade routes on the planet because a substantive amount of international trade goes through the Suez. So up here is Israel. Here's the Gaza Strip. Israel is currently doing all of the bad stuff that we talked about with Noah Samsen that we acknowledge is real. Okay. Some of it seems exaggerated, but 90% of it seems legit. Okay. At least legit enough to complain about. So international ships are coming through and passing Yemen, and Yemeni pirates with backing from Iran are firing missiles into random commercial ships that pass by through this strait. Okay? So the Yemenis are assholes. Now, you would think that if they were protesting the Gazan genocide, they would majority target U.S. ships and they would majority target Israeli ships, right? Because we're the perpetrators of the Gazan genocide. Let's take a look at all the ships that they've attacked. Okay? Let's find the ships. There's a list in here, I guarantee you. Houthi attacks on commercial vessels. Bahamas, Malta, Liberia, Panama, Bahamas, Norway, Marshall Islands, Hong Kong, Liberia, Panama, Norway, Liberia, Singapore, Marshall Islands, Malta, 3 U.S. ships, Liberia, Barbados, Marshall Islands, Panama, Belize, Greece, Palau, Barbados, Singapore, Panama, Marshall Islands, Portugal, Panama, Antigua, Malta, Liberia. You get the picture? Do you get the picture? They don't know who they're attacking. They're attacking random ships. You dipstick. They're not stopping the genocide. They're not attacking Israel. They're not attacking the United States. They're attacking random countries. You moron. So, once again, the heroic struggle. Let's see what he says. Does he say the heroic struggle?
The Palestinians.
The Houthis for their heroic, knowing the full picture, knowing some of the very valid reasons why someone like Hassan might be critical of Israeli atrocity propaganda, or might support groups like the Houthis for their heroic actions in the Red Sea against a genocidal regime. The biggest issue.
So, because Noah Samsen is a leftist, and leftists don't believe in things that work, he thinks they actually don't believe in working at all. He believes that firing missiles into Liberian commercial vessels helps the Gazan genocide and is a heroic effort by Houthis. Can you guys just admit how unbelievably stupid that is? I get it. My chat's my chat. They're probably largely going to agree with me. But this has 852,000 views and 100,000 likes. And this guy is a midwit. That's the nicest way that I can put it.
Issue, I think, is that Ethan manages to do all of this while still calling himself a stalwart ally to the Palestinians.
And I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
This is what makes liberal Zionism so insidious. He is using humanistic appeals to things like peace and safety, but doing so in a way that distracts from the actual source of the problem. The problem is Zionism and the genocidal Israeli state. That is what's causing these problems. And people that might otherwise be able to understand if presented with the facts of the situation are simply led astray by people like Ethan, where a more right-wing Zionist might put off the average liberal with extremist claims and overtly genocidal language. A liberal Zionist draws you in with the facade of empathy. He wants to appear empathetic, as if he cares for these people, as if he doesn't ascribe to a genocidal ideology. So, in order to do that, he has to lie, and roping in otherwise progressive people into a death cult. Aside from this video being a nonsensical genocidal propaganda piece, it's also entirely unoriginal. The video is a culmination of a months-long campaign against Hassan and all these other creators and Twitch, the company, to smear them as terrorists and anti-Semites and get people, in trouble. The campaign began as a response to the suspension of the live streamer Asmongold. Asmongold made some comments that explicitly justified Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza.
I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have
Hold on. So now let's take a look at Noah Samsen's own objections to the video. Again, is that Ethan said Hassan is an extremist who supports terrorism and terrorist groups. He does. He said that he's a rape denialist. Noah Samsen denied rape in this very video. He said that their perspective is prolonging the conflict. It does. You're not getting a Palestinian one-state solution in Israel. You're not doing it. It's not going to happen. Twitch has a systemic problem with anti-Semitism. It does. The hummus panel was an indication of anti-Semitism. It was. IP panning Israel could be seen as anti-Semitic. It was. It's the worst video he's ever seen because that's State Department propaganda. Okay. Accusing Ethan Klein of lies of omission. We've already shown how he's done lies of omission. Telling the Palestinian side of the story. He did tell the side of the story. Good for him, I guess. Mindless supporting anti-Semites, anti-genocide. Well, when they're just anti-genocide. Noah Samsen, you've proven that you're mindless. You've proven that you are incapable of using the vital organ that is between your ears. You literally said that a UN report denied rape when it said that further investigation is warranted. And then in the previous thing, it said, we have all of this circumstantial evidence that shows that rape likely occurred on October 7th. You've actually shown that you're a mindless terrorist supporting anti-Semitic person. And then not just that, mindless terrorist anti-Semitic person, he's made equivalent terrorism, the wholesale slaughter of civilians, as justified because those civilians believe in the Gazan genocide, so therefore they deserve to be slaughtered. And then he also made military operations with rules of engagement equivalent to slaughtering civilians. So he is everything he's complaining about. Every single thing that he has complained about, he has done. He's also used lies of omission in order to sweep for that poet. He's buried the lead by now he's saying that Asmongold is actually the precursor to Ethan Klein attacking Hassan Piker. He's using sanitized language in order to describe Hassan Piker. All he's done is he's taken everything that he's complained about and he's inverted it. He's a douche. He's a douche. That's the most sanitized way that I can describe him. I'm trying to keep my streams PG-13 as best I can so they can be posted to Valor Media, and that's the best I can do. Describing him as a douche is the best I can do.
Genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. They come from an inferior culture. I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care. I don't support them.
Following his suspension for these comments, a community of large content creators, most notably the live streamer Destiny, along with his fan base, rushed to Asmongold's defense, whitewashing and justifying his comments.
Meanwhile, Asmongold gets a 15-day ban for having a spicy take on the war.
So you have someone like Asmongold who breathes the wrong direction, says the wrong thing,
and instantly gets banned.
In this situation, one could, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion. Extremists in the Islamic religion.
The case of Asmongold's suspension from Twitch was then weaponized against these pro-Palestine voices, most notably Hassan, in an effort to get him deplatformed. To do this, they compiled a number of short clips taken from Hassan's live streams, using them to accuse Hassan of things like supporting and promoting terrorism, allegedly denying.
You did that in this video.
October 7th sexual violence, and
you did that in this video,
and making anti-Semitic statements.
You did that in anti-Semitic statements, maybe not, but he did accuse 97% of Israel's civilian population of being genocidal freaks, and by implication being deserving of slaughter. So I think Israelis and Jews could take that as anti-Semitic. I think it is morally okay to target Hassan sponsors and advertisers on Twitch. Well, guess what? It worked.
Each one of the clips and their associated accusations can be traced back to prominent posts on Destiny's subreddit. Some of the clips were sourced from videos that criticized Hassan from well over a year ago. These clips were initially hosted on a
it was over a year ago, so he no longer believes them. Classic tactic.
Website created by a member of the campaign called HamasPiker.com. Soon after, another website was created, DanClancySucks.com, a reference to the CEO of Twitch, Dan Clancy. Another goal of this campaign was to get him fired from the company. This site also hosts all of these clips with their associated allegations: anti-Semitism, terrorist promotion, and rape denial. Eventually, several major YouTubers in the usually apolitical commentary sphere made videos that signal boosted these allegations to millions of viewers. Most of these videos used the same clips, many of them directly citing this smear campaign's website.
There's a website known as DanClancySucks.com.
Or there's also a website that's been created called DanClancySucks.com that goes over it all.
Another website, Advertise on Twitch, shows a collection of ads playing before the dishonestly framed clips we've looked at, and the contact information of the companies is provided. It auto-loads a preset email with just one click, allowing participants in the campaign to mass spam these companies with the related smears. There were several motivations behind this campaign. Smear campaign's website.
There's a website known as
Let's do it. He's challenging us. Let's see it. I want to go to the terrorism video. Yeah, so the whole point, and I felt like rebutting this earlier, right? But the whole point of those people saying that it's wild that Asmongold got a strike is because Hassan interviewed Timothée Chalamet. He watched the what did he watch? He watched the raiding of a commercial vessel by Houthi pirates. He watched Houthi propaganda videos that show them like fighting the Saudis and glorifying their own terrorist actions. So yeah, I think this is relevant. I want to go to the advertising website. That's what I want to do, because I want to watch the clips. Oh, well, yeah, sure. Let's watch these clips. These ones seem fine. Let's take a look. All right. Cheerleading for terrorism. Twitch star called for new 9/11, dismissed horror of October 7th. Fox News writes. That's a news article. I want to see clips. Streamers facing massive ad revenue drop under Clancy's leadership. Okay. Where's a clip? Proof Twitch are blatantly biased against white people and Jews. Hassan Piker finds pogroms. Can we do this one?
The Maccabi Tel Aviv hooligans are getting...
All right. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
Attack right now in the Netherlands after ignoring the minute of silence for Valencia victims and singing racing chants about the extermination of Arabs. Dutch Moroccans are making them aware that this isn't...
It's for the children! For the children!
What the fuck? What is happening?
God, I hate him. Listen to all that dead air. Listen to all that dead air. Dead air, 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 dead air.
Is this ceased to be funny and now I'm in a bad mood? I mean, it's still kind of funny.
Oh, okay. So he took 15 seconds to think about it. Your largest streamer on Twitch. How
The Maccabi Tel Aviv hooligans are
embarrassing
getting
is
attacked
that?
right now.
Literally like 20 seconds of silence after watching a Jewish guy get his shit kicked in. And they're like, oh, well, he was saying something that was anti-Arab. And it's like, okay, where's the clip of him saying anti-Arab? That would be great. I would love to see that. I would love to see, and I'm not saying it didn't happen. Maybe there were Israeli soccer hooligans who were truly chanting anti-Arabic stuff. And then there were a bunch of Arabs who said, this is for the children. And then they just start beating the shit out of Israelis. Maybe that happened. I don't know. Seems kind of messed up though. Let's see if we can get to the advertising website. That's what I want to check out.
DanClancySucks.com.
Or there's also a website that's been created called DanClancySucks.com that goes over it all.
Another website, Advertise on Twitch.
Advertise on Twitch. That's what we wanted. Advertise on Twitch. This is the real one. Where's the Dan? Would that work? Where is it? Did he take it down because it didn't do enough? Dang it. I think we
that
missed
was
it.
Actually taken, and the best part is you send it to the brand and they can see their ad playing right before terrorist content. That's as good as you get right there. And guess what? You can't do shit about it, Dan Clancy. Suck my dick, motherfucker. Sit there like a cuck. You and your fucking virgin incel fucking retards in your fucking conference room, and your fucking
Rude.
PR losers and your attorneys that are all sucking each other's dick. Too bad. So sad. Got outplayed by a guy who plays Rust all day. Cry about it, bitch. Anyways,
Rude,
that's the
Dan.
website. Make sure you share
Rude.
it.
Advertise on Twitch.com. All right, let's see if that still works. Advertise on Twitch.com. Okay, cool. Let's get some clips.
It's okay. You got it.
Jasper. Democrat says she's undecided because of concerns about anti-Semitism. Beth?
Yes!
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Beth.
for remembering we need to bring the hostages home.
Of course.
The rise of anti-Semitism and violence from anti-Semitism has risen greatly on college campuses and on our city streets.
I mean, you can expand it if you want. Feel free. I would love it if you expanded. Expand that clip. Tell me how that's not rude as shit.
This fall, Xbox and Trolley are bringing new adventures to Sea of Thieves. Elder Scrolls.
All right, we're just gonna watch one
World
more
of
and then we'll get back
Warcraft,
to
and
it. I just
Diablo
actually wanted to
4.
see what he was talking about, basically.
What's with the worms? Buy Trolley and get free in-game
You can
content.
you can show us the expanded clips, Noah Samsen.
Says she's on.
It's the same one. All right, that's a little bit of an L, but that's okay. We'll just trust that Dan created a functioning website that shows more than just Hassan laughing at hostages. All right, let's continue.
It shows a collection of ads playing before the dishonestly framed clips we've looked at, and the contact information of the companies is provided. It auto-loads a preset email with just one click, allowing participants in the campaign to mass spam these companies with the related smears. There were several motivations behind this campaign. There were direct material incentives. On YouTube for the past few years, there's a big industry that's exploded in popularity, and it's based on a simple concept. Hassan Piker is bad, and he's dumb and bad and a terrorist.
Hassan is bad, and he did do everything that Ethan Klein accused him of. You haven't shown that he hasn't.
Probably. We can call this the Hassanabi Dunk Video Industrial Complex. It's common for YouTubers during low view months to join in on the fun and make these types of videos, taking short clips from Hassan's thousands of hours of live streaming to misrepresent what he's saying, usually parroting the exact same talking points they're getting from the same YouTubers in the same community. They're watching each other's videos and making each other's videos. It's kind of like a perpetual cycle of dumb guy slop. It's interesting to see YouTubers that typically cover TikTok drama and gaming content randomly giving their opinions on genocide and geopolitics, but that's the result of such an ecosystem. It's not about the politics. It's about making money by attacking a guy they don't like because the guy in question happens to be a political content creator. They have to try to do politics. It's really funny to watch, honestly. It's also wild because the political content creator in question is an anti-genocide content creator, and the arguments they're attacking him for are anti-genocide arguments. So these creators, you know, they're positioning themselves in opposition to him and his arguments, de facto positioning themselves on the pro-genocide.
We're the good guys. We're the good guys, guys. We're the anti-genocide squad. Yeah, sure. We apologize for hacking off civilians' heads with garden implements and women getting raped by Hamas, but we're the good guy squad. Do you want to oppose the good guy squad? Do you really want to do that? We're against genocide, okay? We're for launching missiles into commercial ships that have nothing to do with the United States or Israel. We're for women getting sexually assaulted during terrorist attacks. We are for terrorist attacks against civilians, but we're the anti-genocide squad. So do you really want to attack us? Thanks, Noah, you dipshit. Sorry again, Ma. Sorry, Ma. Sorry, Ma. Sorry, Ken. Trying to reel it in. You dipstick. Oh, man. Wow, that's dumb. How much do we have until this is over? We got 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Christian Valeris. You better be lifting weights.
Genocide side. You know, anti-genocide is pro-genocide. It's quite the precarious predicament they've placed themselves in. Do they realize it? No. Do they care? Probably not. But that's what's happening. You know, that's what they're doing. The success of Ethan's video, which garnered over 3 million views in its first month, is a testament to the algorithmic viability of Hassan Bad content. Get in front of a politically illiterate American audience and call a pro-Palestine influencer a terrorist.
Promoting hateful terrorist music videos.
Terrorist propaganda videos.
He literally did that. You haven't shown that he hasn't done that. And if anything, in this video, you've made terrorist apologia.
Terrorist propaganda video.
Collect big fat AdSense check. That's how it goes. And Ethan knew it would do well too and made sure to get a sponsor for the video.
Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video.
Which was a VPN company that happens to be owned by an Israeli billionaire with a history of funding and supporting the IDF. He's not a Zionist though, apparently. Apparently he's not a Zionist, and he's pro-Palestine.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
A few years ago, Destiny was banned from Twitch. Since then, he has repeatedly attempted to be reinstated on the platform, and the latest attempt by using the campaign was probably the closest he's ever been in terms of putting pressure on the platform.
We're tired of your site changing the rules every week. Nobody knows what's going on. Get your shit together, unban Destiny, and fucking make a site that people actually want to go to.
Dedicated the last 2 weeks of my life basically to Steve's cause.
You're talking about the Twitch thing?
Yeah, destroying Twitch.
Some of the motivations for the campaign are political in nature, though, obviously. You know, Hassan Piker is one of the most prominent pro-Palestine voices on YouTube, and this campaign has been orchestrated by Zionists. The website that started this campaign, HamasPiker.com, doubled as a donation page for a prominent Zionist organization. Since learning about the existence of Israel on October 7th of 2023, Destiny has positioned himself as its #1 cheerleader, showing up to debates to defend the genocidal apartheid state using Zionist talking points and denying that a genocide is taking place. On the Lex Friedman Israel-Palestine debate, Destiny justified Israel's slaughter of 4 Palestinian children in the Gaza beach bombings using talking points plucked directly from IDF spokespeople.
Those kids weren't just on the beaches, as often stated in articles. Those kids were literally coming out of a previously identified Hamas compound that they had operated from. They literally did. You can Google it. You can Google it.
With all due respect, you're such a fantastic moron. It's terrifying.
I left Finkelstein's iconic response in there because he is 100% correct. The events of that day were witnessed.
Yo. You can hate Steven. You can think he's a bad person. You can think that he did this sex thing, whatever. Noah Samsen's been accused of a sex thing recently. You can hate Steven. I don't care if you dislike Steven. If you think that Steven is unintelligent, meaning that he is not capable of consuming complex information, distilling it within his own brain, and then speaking complexly about a topic, you're a moron. And I know that this is true because you will never catch Noah Samsen having a conversation, a non-combative conversation with Stephen, because he would fall apart like wet tissue paper. The reason why I know he would fall apart like wet tissue paper is because he had one conversation with Vosh and he fell apart like wet tissue paper. The only way that this guy can create content that says what he says without challenge is by being in a video essay format. He cannot be challenged on any idea whatsoever. He can't even articulate what Steven said that was wrong. All he says is that, what is it? Destiny says, hey, 4 kids who got smoked on the beach, they were coming out of a Hamas sewer hole or something like that. And therefore it stands to reason that the Israelis believe that there were Hamas militants coming into Israel. And Norm Finkelstein says, you're a moron. That's not a rebuttal. You can say, well, there's civilians and they want to play on that beach. I actually know the local lifeguards. It's normal for Palestinians to be there. You haven't rebutted the argument. All you've done is called your opponent dumb. And that's all that frickin' Noah Samsen has done. I'm not calling Noah Samsen dumb because I can't articulate why he's dumb. I can articulate why he's dumb. I took notes. Let's go ahead and pull up the notes. He is dumb because he accused Ethan Klein of using sanitized language, bearing the lead, lies of omission, and he's done all 3 of those in this video. He is dumb because he says that Hassan is not a terrorist supporter, he's not a rape denialist, and he's not prolonging the conflict between by his naive one-state solution. The one-state solution is prolonging the conflict 100%. Hassan Piker is not relevant to like the negotiations, but his perspective sucks. He is a rape denialist. Noah Samsen just denied rape in this video. Hassan is an extremist who does support terrorism. Noah Samsen repeated terrorist sympathetic talking points in this video. So he's a moron because he's criticizing people for things with which he is obviously guilty. What the fudge? What the fudge, man? What the fudge, man, Noah? Noah, you wet piece of tissue paper, you goldfish. You fail. You fail so bad. You suck.
By dozens of journalists. There is no real dispute as to what happened, except from, of course, the party that slaughtered the children, which is Israel, and in turn, its propagandists, like Destiny.
A group of boys, cousins, playing on the beach, now were running for their lives. Until seconds later, another shell hit. Israel claimed it was firing on Hamas militants at the port, but the dead were 4 young boys.
He's also explicitly called for the genocide of Palestinians.
Honestly, I'm pro-genocide. It sounds really shitty, but like I think that Israel should just draw its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but like that's about where I'm at.
It's this guy and his community who are the source for every one of the arguments that Ethan makes in his video. Do stalwart advocates...
Oh, this is called the genetic fallacy. So Destiny does say wild stuff. It's part of how he gets people to watch his streams. I'm not gonna, defend him saying like, ha ha ha, I'm pro-genocide. Israel should do whatever it wants. Lol. Obviously, and Steven's been accused of being a sociopath in the past. That's unsurprising to me. But the genetic fallacy is saying that where an argument's origin comes from is what you use in order to dismiss the argument. Noah Samsen is trying to say, because Ethan Klein's points originate from Stephen, therefore you cannot consider them. But that's not how argumentation works, okay? An argument can come from a bad source. Adolf Hitler can say that you should drink a gallon of water a day and it's largely good for you. Adolf Hitler can also be guilty of genocide and slaughtering Jews. That would not mean that drinking water is bad for you. I think that's obvious. I think my audience understands that, but apparently Noah Samsen's audience doesn't, and so it needs to be said.
For Palestinians normally collaborate with advocates for Palestinian genocide? No, they do not, in my opinion. Destiny's podcast co-host Dan Saltman, the other main driver behind this campaign and the one spearheading the creation of these smear websites, is also a Zionist. Saltman promoted pro-Israel organizations like the ADL and Stopped Anti-Semitism, and Zionist politicians like Richie Torres, who shared and boosted the campaign. He consistently weaponizes Zionist talking points, like asserting that any reference to Zionism is actually just coded anti-Semitic language. The implication there being, of course, that criticizing Israel and Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. That's a very common Zionist tactic. It's like the Zionist tactic, in the West at least. Perhaps the most significant motivation, though, and indicative of the sort of unserious nature of this campaign, is just spite. These people all seem to have deep personal vendettas against Hassan and these other creators that should give one pause when considering the seriousness of the campaign that they're running.
God, he's so cringe. He's like such a cringe loser. I would pay we'd raise $1 million to send this dude to go fight in Yemen, and then all of us would volunteer for the Navy. Holy shit, he's such a cringe.
Destiny has for almost 5 years just obsessively talked about Hassan on his channel. He's made video after video about him. The frequency of these videos increased after Destiny was banned from Twitch. In the span of time since then, he has uploaded almost 80 videos about Hassan out of a total of like 450 videos. So that's at least 1/5 of his working life spent talking about Hassan. In contrast, in the same span of time, Hassan has uploaded over 1,200 videos, and he's talked about Destiny a total of 5 times. 5. 4 of them have come in the last few months while covering Destiny's role in this smear campaign and the credible allegations of sex crimes against him. So that's less than 1% of his coverage. This isn't an internet beef. Hassan has a stalker. With Ethan, I feel like...
So what's funny about this clip, you can find it on Twitter. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll try to find it. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Steven says, Hassan has talked about me 5 times today. Right? And so he goes to Twitch and he clicks on a live stream, and Destiny Hassan has talked about me 5 times today. And literally as he clicks on the Hassan Piker video, no way, I found it almost instantaneously. Here we go. Watch this. Okay. So Noah Samsen, we just watched this portion of the clip. He accuses Destiny of being obsessed with Hassan because he's done 80 views on 80 views watched, or excuse me, 80 videos on Hassan. And I'm pretty sure Destiny has significantly more videos than Noah Samsen says. And then Destiny says, I'm just gonna let you guys see it, but it's actually pretty amazing. Oh, what? Why isn't it playing? Can you guys hear that or no? I can't hear it. Why can't I hear it? The audio is live. Oh, I have the website muted. Give me 1 second. Unmute site. Here we go. Sorry. I figured it out.
Hassan talked about me 5 times yesterday. What is this framing? It's actually... I thought it would have been over 1,000 videos, but you know.
His working life spent talking about Hassan. In contrast, in the same span of time, Hassan has uploaded over 1,200, talked about Destiny a total of 5 times. 5. 4 of them have...
Like, Hassan talked about me 5 times yesterday. What is this framing? It's actually unhinged.
Like, I genuinely think Destiny's unhealthy obsession over the course.
I need a break.
Yeah. So, all right. In case you don't understand exactly what happened, Noah Samsen accuses Destiny of being obsessed with Hassan, which you could argue, like, Steven does spend an inordinate amount of time hating on Hassan, but Hassan Piker is the largest political streamer in the world. So it makes sense that Steven would spend a healthy chunk of his time hating on Hassan, especially if they used to be friends and they have beef. Maybe he's a little bit too psycho about it, but hey, it makes for fire content, it makes for high viewership, etc., right? And so Destiny rejects this framing that Hassan has only made 5 videos about Steven. And he's like, he's talked about me 5 times today. What are you talking about? He pulls up twitch.tv. It's live. It is live. And the first words out of Hassan's mouth are Destiny, blobbity, 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 blah. Okay? So the gods, the Twitch and YouTube gods have oriented all of existence around the beef between Hassan Biker and Steven in order to create this clip. Okay? So I hope you can appreciate, we call that synchronicity. It's where the universe lines up in order to create interesting and cool and coincidental moments. That was synchronicity. It's partial evidence of a God existing, okay? Because he has a fucked up sense of humor.
Like I can kind of spot the moment that he started going into this direction, which was the moment that people started calling him racist for saying racist stuff. It was one argument he made where he compared Jewish Voice for Peace anti-Zionist activists to capos.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis. that
Ethan,
were
don't do that,
informers.
please. Don't say that the Jews' voice for peace are akin to capos. Like that's.
I'm telling you that the mere existence of Jewish voices it's not a leg to stand on. I don't understand that.
The chat started calling him a Zionist freak because that's a Zionist freak thing to say. And then since then, he's sort of constructed an entire mind prison around the idea that he's not racist and anyone calling him racist is actually the real racists. Because Hassan's community is politically oriented and is able to spot the racist rhetoric in question, that means they're all extremists and Hassan is leading them, so he's an extremist.
Oh, I think Noah Samsen's actually like a midwit dipstick. Again, I'm trying to avoid profanity. So here's the thing: is we just watched this yesterday. We watched Candace Owens. Y'all, for real. Let me go ahead and shout out Valor Media Network again. So YouTube, Valor Media Network. Valor Media Network. I'm going to send the thing. But I was live yesterday. I was live for 7 hours. We had 20 plus people in chat, but we, I want you guys to migrate over there. Okay. So I want you to copy this link that I'm about to post in chat. I want you to click on it or copy it and paste it into your browser. I want you to go to the YouTube channel and I want you to subscribe to that channel because I'm going to be going live there 4 to 5 hours, 4 to 5 days a week. And I'm going to be live from roughly 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We might dial in the hours as time goes on, but that's what we're going to start with, right? And so I want you guys to go watch that because yesterday we watched Candace Owens and we watched Counterpoints talk about conspiracy theories. And we watched Candace Owens specifically talk about conspiracy theories related to the Mossad and Israel and international Jews co-opting the CIA through blackmail for involvement with Nazis. And what was really interesting about that conversation is the American Zionist Council was being forced to register as a Foreign Agent Registration Act entity by the Kennedy administration. And so she was insinuating that because they didn't want to disclose their funding, they killed JFK. That's what she was insinuating. And looking at that, though, the AZC said that their primary concern was that the AJC, which was the American Jewish Coalition or American Jewish Council, I forget, which was an explicitly anti-Zionist organization, would get access to their donors list and as a result attack their fellow Jews who support the state of Israel. And that would evaporate American support for the state of Israel and Zionist support in the Western world. That was the stated goal. So bringing up the fact that there are different factions of Jews and that they have different perceptions on the state of Israel is not racist. Okay. And Ethan Klein saying that, like, hey, just because you have AJC aligned people who are saying things and I'm more AZC, but I'm a moderate, that doesn't mean that you suddenly, like, your Jew trumps my Jewish opinion. Okay. I don't need to talk to your good Jew to have my own opinion. And I think that Ethan Klein is correct to complain about that.
Extremist, and that Hassan and them are all the problem.
Biz D says, what's your take on Candace? I think she's legitimately stupid. I think she's too dumb to lie. But she's a propagandist in that she understands how to create compelling conspiracy theory narratives. She understands that. So I don't think she's a grifter, but I do think she's a propagandist.
That he's a perfect angel, which is the direction he's taken, it seems like.
My only crime is wanting a two-state solution instead of one, and thinking it's not okay to kill Israeli civilians. That's it. That's why they're calling me a Nazi Zionist.
And now he's just totally gone off the rails. He spends most of his time cowering in fear behind Instagram stories that people can't respond to. Every single one of the uploads on his personal YouTube channel in the last number of months have been targeted towards Hassan. He spent most of his live podcast talking about Hassan and calling him a terrorist and whatnot.
What is this? Bro, I have not seen a single one of his fucking Instagram stories. I didn't know he was posting about me this much. Oh my God. Every day? Every single day? You're
still a piece of shit today.
There was that one Instagram story where Ethan Klein was having to evacuate due to the wildfires or something, and he managed to make the post about Hassan and about how Hassan probably thinks it's awesome that his house might burn down while his family is in the background trying to evacuate the wildfires. Just wild. Ethan Klein has repeatedly denied any association with this campaign and Destiny or his community. That may have something to do with the recent credible allegations that Destiny is a sex criminal, but this is false.
Okay. People could accuse me of sweeping. It's totally fine. Get out your you don't have to get out your brooms, Chad. I'm just going to say
that may have something
really
to do with
funny
the
about
recent credible allegations.
So Florida streamer Destiny sued over cyber sexual harassment court documents. So cyber sexual harassment, that statute doesn't apply. It's not going to apply in the case to our knowledge. We don't have all the details, but to our knowledge, that's not going to happen. And same thing with digital voyeurism. The statute doesn't apply there either. He probably will be partially liable for the civil suit. I've heard from people inside his camp that he's confident that it's going to get totally dismissed, but I have no idea what's going to happen. He could still get hit with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties. I have no idea what's going to happen, right? But if you look at what actually happened, he had consensual sex acts with women, and he sent those videos to people with whom he did not have permission to share those videos. As a result, those videos got leaked. Okay? It's bad. Nobody's saying it's good. It's bad behavior. You shouldn't do it. Nobody should do it. Bad behavior, right? Okay? If he gets sued and a court finds him guilty and he has to pay money, okay. That's probably some form of justice. Even his most ardent critics don't think that he should be incarcerated, which I think is funny. Even his most ardent critics don't think that he should be beaten. I also find that funny because I do think that he should basically, like, I'd say this to his face. I think he should get his ass kicked and then move on. Like, I think Pixie's dad should beat his ass and then call it a day. Shake hands, walk it off, right? But anyways, so that's what Steven has been accused of. And then also audio recording people in sex acts. The sex acts were consensual. The audio recording was not. That's what he's been accused of. In the past week, I'm not saying that this is as bad, but Noah Samsen was accused by an ex-girlfriend that he dated for several months and he was in an open relationship with, that he lied about having unprotected sex with strangers. That way he could have unprotected sex with her, which is 100% how you get herpes. So it's okay. Like, listen, these are bad things. Men should learn from these people's bad examples. You should be a better human being than both Noah Samsen and Steven. You should be a better human being than Vosh. But what I want you to understand is that most of these people are degenerates, or they're young and stupid, and they're going to do young and stupid and degenerate shit. So when you're throwing rocks at other people's glass houses, just make sure that you're not in a glass house yourself. That's the main thing I'm trying to say. Biz D says the Sherry allegations are real bad if true. I mean, I think those are the worst ones. I think the audio recording without consent, I think, is the worst one, in my opinion, morally, because if you have consent to videotape a sex act and then you share it and then it gets leaked, you can be deemed reckless, stupid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're audio recording without consent, that's obviously a clear violation of the other person's consent. And so while they might not be identifiable in the content that's produced, you're very clearly walking into a situation without the consent of the other party involved. What's interesting, I think that you can parse it apart and you can say that Noah Samsen's violations are a less significant degree. However, he violated his partner's consent because his partner said multiple times, if we're going to have sex unprotected, I need to know that you're not having unprotected sex with other people. And Noah Samsen said, yeah, babe, I'm not having unprotected sex with other people. And based off of that information, she consented to unprotected sex. So is it as serious? No. Is it a shitty thing to do? Obviously. Should he be canceled or sued or go to jail or something? No. But it's very dog shit behavior that should not be repeated by other young men. Bolmedia Steel Dragon says, yeah, but they market themselves as serious political commentators. I mean, for sure. But you as the audience should not take them seriously. You should get the good information from them as a form of entertainment, but you should not hold them up as prophets or messiah figures. Counter propaganda is to grifting what private hearing is the piracy. Rivera Art 9. You're gonna have to repeat that in a way that's like coherent. Connor, comma. Propaganda is to grifting what private hearing is to piracy. If you're talking about like music, private hearing is to piracy. I don't agree. I think you can propagandize topics that you're sincere about. So, for instance, if I watch a bunch of Ukrainian helicopter and fighter jet footage that's set to rock and roll music, I can seriously believe that Ukraine is still correct in the war. The Ukrainian pilots who are shooting that footage can still think that they're correct in the war. And the musicians, if they endorse the product, can still believe in the war. Just because they're creating something cool to entrance people within a political perspective doesn't mean that they're being dishonest. I don't agree. Whoo! Bolmedia Steel Dragon says, at Counterpoints, this is the problem. Connor Destiny doing that disgusting shit to Pixie gave water to these morons and to every right-winger he will debate in the future. I mean, I agree. It was very dumb. But they market themselves. Yep, I addressed that. Connor, I had unprotected sex the other night with my girlfriend. Can we get a W from chat? No, you degenerate. As long as you're monogamous, I guess that's better. But no, we are not gooners in this chat. Geez, you guys are brutal. All right, come on. We got 5 minutes left. Christian Valeris wanted to move on from this content, so let's wrap it up. Sure. Silver Jacket Man says if we can watch that, for sure. Let's do it. Let's wrap this up, though. Let's give this man his time. We literally skipped 15 minutes, and it was still a drag-out slugfest.
That Destiny is a sex criminal, but this is false. Ethan has been caught on his live podcast browsing the Destiny subreddit for arguments to use to attack Hassan. Leaked Discord logs show Dan Saltman admitting to exchanging emails with Ethan and the H3 team personally during the campaign. And even if there wasn't evidence of direct communication, the far more important connection is that Ethan is saying the exact same things, using the same out of context clips that everyone else used to call Hassan a terrorist or whatever. It's been a group effort.
Okay. So if Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that slaughters civilians and fires rockets indiscriminately into Israel, and Hassan Piker says that he's chill with Hezbollah, then he's a terrorist supporter. If he supports Hamas or does apologia for Hamas, and Hamas is a terrorist organization that slaughtered civilians, he's a terrorist supporter. If he supports the Houthis, which he obviously did by giving them a glowing interview, then and the Houthis are firing missiles indiscriminately into commercial ships, then he's a terrorist supporter. At no time in this video has Noah Samsen debunked those facts.
That's just what it is. So just a few final thoughts here. Zionism is Nazism. It's an ethnic supremacist, expansionist, colonial ideology. You can't have Zionism without genocide and ethnic cleansing. That's the end goal of the project. It's what it is. Palestinians are there, and for the Zionist project to be complete, they have to go. Starve them out, bomb them, destroy everything they need to live. Those are the methods. Those are what they're employing as we speak. And like Nazism, Zionism cannot be defeated through reform or debate. It must be destroyed from the outside through efforts made by the Palestinian people, the Palestinian resistance, and coalitions of allies. As history
Guys, I'm not a terrorist supporter. I don't know why you would think that. However, Zionism is Nazism, and it has to be destroyed by outside forces, including the armed efforts of Hamas. Guys, I don't support terrorism, but 97% of Israelis support genocide and are therefore valid military targets. Noah Samsen, you are amazing. I can't tell if you're amazingly stupid or if it's ironic. Like, are you so dumb that you don't understand the words that you're saying, or you don't understand the irony, or do you understand the irony and you're doing it because you're hoping that your audience catches it? I can't believe it. Hold on. I need to hear that again with my own ears. I need to hear that again. Zionism and Nazism and needs to be destroyed by exterior military efforts.
Out of context clips that everyone else used to call Hassan a terrorist or whatever. It's been a group effort. That's just what it is. So just a few final thoughts here. Zionism is Nazism. It's an ethnic supremacist, expansionist, colonial ideology. You can't have Zionism without genocide and ethnic cleansing. That's the end goal of the project. It's what it is. Palestinians are there, and for the Zionist project to be complete, they have to go. Starve them out, bomb them, destroy everything they need to live. Those are the methods. Those are what they're employing as we speak. And like Nazism, Zionism cannot be defeated through reform or debate. It must be destroyed from the outside through efforts made by the Palestinian people, the Palestinian resistance, and coalitions of allies. As history.
Who do you think he means by the Palestinian resistance and the coalition of allies? That is crazy pants. Wow. All right. I'm sorry, Christian Blair's. We are wrapping up.
Has shown the downfall of these kinds of racist ideologies as possible, but Zionists cannot be a part of this process. They're Zionists. They uphold Zionism by spreading Zionist propaganda and spending all their time and effort attacking anti-Zionists, even as those anti-Zionists are actively fighting against a genocide that Zionism is the ideological pretext for. In the case of liberal Zionists like Ethan Klein, using his weird personal Zionist crash out as a jumping off point to educate people about the ideology that he adheres to is a great use of time, I think. And Bad Empanada has done a fantastic job with that. His videos have reached pretty wide audiences and expose them to the reality and history of the genocidal Zionist project. That's a really good thing. That's a really important thing that he's doing. And I think many of you can probably also help out with that. Most of you have smartphones and cameras and TikTok. So go ahead. Start posting about it. Spread the word. Aside from being a morally good thing to do, it's also becoming sustainable. You know, it's algorithmically viable. The Ethan Klein crash out industrial complex is booming. And we can harness it as a propaganda machine to expose Zionism for the genocidal ideology that it is. You may have the feeling, as I often have, that the history books will look back upon these times and those who supported the Gaza genocide with shame and horror. The only problem with that is that these people feel no shame. They're here to make money and to convince themselves that they aren't evil. And the way they do that is by lying, by spreading liberal Zionist propaganda. It's profitable and it's easy and it's acceptable. You're allowed to say that you think all Palestinians should die.
I'm pro-genocide.
And still get invited to Jubilee as the resident liberal. You're allowed to do it and run your quirky, epic, silly podcast and make hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that because the Western media ecosystem encourages it. There will be no justice for the Palestinian people if all we do is watch content about what's happening. Consumption is not politics. There will be no justice for the victims of this genocide unless we all actively fight for it. From the position that most of the viewers of this video have, that's by using the resources and time to continue to speak out, preserve the record of what's actually happened in Gaza, name the perpetrators, and highlight and boost the voices that understand these facts more than anyone in the world. That is, the Palestinian people. Don't stop sharing their stories or contributing to direct aid. I'll leave a document below with some Palestinian voices and outlets that you should follow and campaigns to contribute to. In If I Must Die, Rifat El-Arir tells the story of Yasser Ashur, a young Palestinian survivor of Operation Cast Lead, Israel's late 2008 onslaught in Gaza. During Cast Lead, Israel bombed a UN school, which was also designated a safe zone, killing 44 civilians. Ashur was 14 at the time of the attack, and Israel killed 5 of his classmates and friends. Ever since the massacre, Ashur has tried to honor the memories of his classmates by exposing Israeli crimes. I run a few Twitter accounts with tens of thousands of followers. He said, "The battle for justice for Palestine over social media is crucial, and we have to win it. We don't have Israel's billions, but we have the power of the truth." And that's what we have. We have the truth. October 7th blew the lid off the genocidal Israeli project. October 7th is the reason you're here watching this video today. Israel's response to it has radicalized a generation of people by exposing the Israeli state and its backers in the West for what they are: depraved, ethnic supremacist, genocidal lunatics. That's the truth. We have all these tools to speak the truth, and now's the time to do that. So just do it. I don't know. Don't stop fighting for it. Free Palestine.
Oh my God. We literally just got through it because it was so... His monotone just drives me crazy. It's fine. I'm happy he's found success. Good for him, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about why I think he's wrong, and let's actually talk about geopolitical solutions real quick. Maps, Israel. Okay. So I can be wrong, and I am, by definition, a Zionist apologist while not apologizing for everything that the state of Israel does. I think plenty of the things that he pointed out are indeed jacked up and should not be done. And I think some of the stuff is legitimately evil, meaning that it's bad and people know that it's bad, but they do it anyways. So this is all of Israel, right? This is like a huge desert. It's Israel all the way down to the coast. We got these rivers, we got these roads, we got Jerusalem, we got the West Bank, all that kind of stuff. So right now, this border is Palestinian-controlled territory. I believe that this area is controlled by the Palestinian Authority, but Israelis are able to travel to it. It's dangerous, but they can do it. And then Gaza is right here. This is effectively the size of Detroit. Okay? So if the Palestinians were smart, then what they would do is they would say, because they've already lost, like every single time that they launch a military campaign, they get their shit kicked in and they lose more territory. So clearly, force of arms, they're not going to prevail, right? And if there were allies, the coalition that, you know, Mr. What's-his-face was talking about, Noah was talking about, then the United States would back Israel and kick the shit out of all of the Arab countries that invaded Israel would either get slaughtered by Israeli forces or they would get slaughtered by American forces that interceded on Israel's behalf in order to prevent another Holocaust, right? So what this leaves Gaza, right? And what's happened is Israel has invaded here. They've taken the entire territory. They fought people all the way down. And then Rafah is where a majority of the civilians are currently staying. And all of that, they're slowly moving their way back into these territories. That's all bombed out. Now, what Trump wants to do is he wants to, and I'm not saying this is going to happen because it's too complex, but what he wants to do is he wants to take 2.2 million people and he wants Egypt to move them right here in Egypt and for them to become Egyptian citizens, and then for Israel to take all of Gaza. Alternatively, he would want to take 2.2 million people and move them to Jordan and have them become Jordanian citizens and protectorate, or have them move here. But at that point, they're probably going to get cleared out in the future, right? And then he wants to build this into a new Riviera, a rich area that, let's face it, will probably be turned over to the Jews, not turned over to Palestinian Muslims, right? That's the situation on the ground. So if I was a Gazan, right, which I'm not, or if I was a West Banker, which I am not, then what I would say is Israel and United States, we want to come to a territorial agreement. This border of Gaza is Palestinian and it will remain Palestinian in all of perpetuity. This border, we could figure out like new borders or whatever, but this border will remain Palestinian and it will remain Palestinian in all of perpetuity. We will cease armed fighting against the Israeli Defense Forces as long as we get billions of dollars to make this territory our own, build it up, secure food, secure water, secure security, secure a good social life, secure education, and secure higher levels. And we want to take a massive investment into this so we can make these places as rich and powerful and interesting and cool as Israel or Saudi Arabia or Dubai or any of those other places. That's what the Palestinians could do. But what's probably going to happen, because what they're saying, what Noah Samsen is saying, what Hassan Piker is saying, is that from the river to the sea, from this river right here to the sea, the Mediterranean, Palestine will be free, and that is the only thing that is acceptable. Well, they don't have the cards, as the Trump administration would say, so they're just going to keep attacking Israel, and every time they attack, they're going to lose more territory. So when Ethan Klein says you're a moron and you're in opposition to peace, Ethan Klein wants to freeze the borders for Palestinians to stop getting killed and for them to develop their current holdings. That's what Ethan Klein wants as a moderate. What these people are saying, Hassan Piker and Noah Samsen, is that Palestinians should continue to fight for these territories, lose, and then lose all of their territories. They can say that that's not what they're advocating for because obviously they think that the Palestinians are going to win, but they're just not. So that's it. That's my geopolitical analysis. You either sue for the borders that you currently have and then develop it aggressively, or you lose everything.